That's Cool Drink, episode 18 coming at you tonight. Guys, I got Robert Williams. It's going to be such a good night, but I got to let you know, I had the best time announcing for some Rocky Mountain Race Week dudes at the Mile High Nationals. It was so much fun. Tony Latimer and Miles Groves and Bill Armstrong and Rich Guido. Guys, thank you guys so much for being able to make that trip. Rich Guido drove 1,250 miles, and it looked like we were going to get one pass. In fact, Friday, we only got one pass, and that was the only day we were on the schedule. So they were able to get another pass on Saturday. I didn't go back up on Saturday, and I've just got too much stuff to do. Obviously, if you watch the Joe Barry episode, you know now I'm moving. So we are getting everything ready to move, which includes me getting the Malibu running at least enough to drive into a trailer or onto a trailer. So I did work on the Malibu, which was cool. So I got a bunch of stuff going with that. But it was super duper neat for those guys to get a couple of passes at the Mile High Nationals. And man, just had a freaking great day. And pretty much all I did was talk Rocky Mountain Race Week and street cars to everyone that wanted to listen that was within earshot, to include like Clay Milliken. I ended up on his podcast or his YouTube channel on his last video when he was interviewing Rich Guido. I jumped in there and said, "Hey," and he's kind of like, "Hey," so we're like the same dude, which was super cool. That was fun. But anyway, guys, we're back. I don't even feel like I know what I'm doing right now because obviously, again, you watched the last one. It was Joe Barry. And then we were off for some stuff. I was, racing, had a little Rocky Mountain Race Week that we did and whatnot. And anyway, that said, tonight's going to be awesome as well because I've got Robert Williams on. This is a dude that we were talking kind of backstage a little bit before. We met because of whiskey, and we'll tell that story. But without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, the Robert Williams.
Legend in my own mind, as I tell Michael Crow.
Absolutely. Dude, thank you so much for coming on. And I know this is kind of not your normal deal. You don't do a bunch of these or any of these. And so I was sure that you'd mentioned a couple of times, like, I might be interested in maybe doing something with you, but like, you'd be like the only one. And so I asked you thinking like, you might just tell me no, but you said, let's do it. Like,
I can't tell you no. Come on.
No, it's great. It's super awesome. And Mike Stiver's correct because Robert and Debbie are awesome people.
Yes. Well, she is definitely awesome.
She's the queen for sure. And we've got some cool stuff, and we'll talk about her in a bit for sure. Because as you know, riding with your significant other as your co-pilot is it's a whole different thing.
Yep.
It's a whole different thing. Chris Story, they are the best. Absolutely.
Chris Story, my man.
That's right.
Makes us all look good.
Absolutely. Exactly.
We're in the bid.
And we do have some Chris Story goodness coming up here as well.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
And here's a little sneak peek. There's just just a little bit just for you. But dude, so again, like we were talking backstage, I really have been getting into kind of the nuts and bolts, pun intended. What got you into hot rodding and kind of the earliest stories of you kind of, first turning the key on something and realizing like, I'm going to be poor for the rest of my life?
Well, I pretty much discovered cars like most young men, probably, I don't know, cars. Well, back, I'm a child of the 70s, obviously, because I'm an old fart. And so back in the mid 70s, the van thing, the van craze, was like a big thing. And so I thought, custom vans, that's really what I wanted to do, believe it or not. And I thought it was really cool. And then I was hanging out with some friends. I was, 14, 15, I think. And we were at a bowling alley, and this I was with a buddy of mine, and his mom had to come pick us up, and her car broke down, so she had to borrow his older brother's car, which was a '67 Fairlane. It was like a
Cool.
Thunderbolt clone. It had a 428 4-speed.
Nice.
It was a badass car. I mean, it had like the primer spots and stuff like that.
Right.
Because it was a kid's car and everything. But and he's like, as soon as we get in, he's like, "Oh, mom, you got to do this stuff." So I mean, here's this mom, and I figured his mom was probably, I don't know, mid-late 30s or whatever, and she just like sidesteps the clutch, leaving a bowling alley. And
Sweet.
I was hooked because I was jammed into the back seat. The torque of that big block Ford and stuff, and it was like, okay, no vans, got to be a muscle car. That's it. And then of course, later that year, here comes Smokey and the Bandit.
Hell yeah.
So every kid my age wanted a black Trans Am, the whole deal. And as it turned out, my first car was a '79 Trans Am, but it was solar gold.
Okay.
I don't know if you snagged a picture of that one or not.
I did not.
Oh, okay.
I did not.
It's on my Facebook. Look for it. But no, I mean, I was just telling the audience.
I was like, I'll do it right now. I can do that.
If you want to do that, that's fine. You can do that.
Well, keep talking about it, and I'll find it, and I'll bring it on here.
Well, it was a notable car here in Lee County, Florida. I started. Let me back up a little bit. I was getting into cars and everything, and let me see. How did I meet? Oh yeah, I see that, Eric, for sure. I'm trying to remember how I got hooked up with Chip and the Rollins Automotive Crew. This was like 1980, and I think it was. I was like my first job. I worked at a restaurant, busboy. That was my first job. And anyway, one of the guys there had a Camaro that had, that Rollins had done some work and that kind of stuff. So I ended up going down there and hanging out with him, and then that turned into pretty much a second family for me. We'll get into that a little bit later on, but let's see.
And of course, they're proprietors of Rollins Speed and
Rollins Automotive Speed and Custom in Gainesville, Florida.
Which, unfortunately, I was riding with Derek Putnam on Sick Week, and we had the chance to get over there and check the speed shop out, and we ran out of time, unfortunately. So I was really looking forward to seeing. I like cool local old school speed shops, not unlike yours even.
Pretty old school speed shop there for sure.
Yeah.
But so I started hanging out with them, and then of course they started doing work for my on my Trans Am, and let's see, the first thing that we did on that, because it had that 403 olds, whole 185 horsepower.
Oh yeah.
Deal, and like, well, these things don't have any gear in them. They got like 241 gears in the back, from the factory. And I mean, it took forever. The thing would run like 130, 140 miles an hour. It'd take you a long time to get there.
Right, but it would do it.
But it would do it. So put a set of 373s in the back of that thing, and suddenly it accelerated really well. And then took the quadrajet off, put a Holley spread bore carb on it, then some headers, and back then they didn't make Olds headers for Firebirds. So
okay.
We had to adapt a set of Olds Cutlass headers with a little bit of hammer work.
Oh yeah, totally. A little bit of the red wrench,
and
and
then the Tanya Harding, So did that, and then that wasn't fast enough for me. I mean, I started street racing, and
what era? Where are we at right now in the world? 81.
81. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 80, 81, and so back then, nitrous. My car was the first street car in Lee County with nitrous.
Okay.
And it was one I had read about it in Hot Rod, and back then you had two kits. You had NOS, and that was like 125 horsepower or whatever, fixed jetting or whatever, and then the other one which was actually the first one to market, was Marv Miller. I don't know if you've ever heard
I
that.
don't. No.
Yeah, Marv Miller nitrous systems. Well, Chip talked me into NOS because, more power. I mean, the Marv Miller only had 80 horsepower, and of course the NOS was 120.
Right.
So put that on, and that car won me so much money.
Oh, I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah.
Like a nitrous street car.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably ran in the 12s.
Nope.
Faster than that?
No, slower, believe it or not.
Slower than that.
Slower than that. The problem was I couldn't hook it.
Okay.
Yeah, because back then your traction aids consisted of air shocks and slapper bars.
Totally.
And the tires were as hard as iron.
Right. They were like those like Mickey Thompson, the ones with the eye and the tread.
Yeah, they didn't hook. So what I did was the hot trick back then was you go to a circle track racer and get some of their takeoffs.
Okay. All right.
They weren't good for circle track racing, but they were slicks. Right. And, but they had like really hard sidewalls. And basically what I did is I had my street tires were Krager SS's. I had like 15.7s, 15.10 reverse with
totally
N50s on the back of it, because you had to have N50s.
Well, yeah, that's what you do.
Right, that's what you did. So when I would set it up to street race, I took my stock Rally 2 stamped steel wheels, and I had FR 78 15s up front, pumped up to like 45 pounds,
right,
for less rolling resistance. And then the back, we drilled the wheels because you drilled for to keep the tires from spinning.
Right.
And mounted the roundy round tires on it, and then just put the beauty rings on and everything. And we raced at night, so for all intents and purposes, you'd see the car and it looked like a stock Trans Am.
Totally.
I built kind of a reputation in a couple of different towns, so guys would show up, and I'd just be like, hey, whatever. And
it's awesome. Hell yes.
And that car also cost me my license for 6 years, and I ended up having to sell it.
Ed Hohenberg.
Attorney fees, So there's
Ed Hohenberg used dirt track tires on the street.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's some old school stuff, man. And the biggest thing back then, if you wanted like the big pro street meets, you had to get McCreary dirt track tires.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like sprint car tires.
Yeah. Big ones. I mean, they were the only ones that made them.
Yep.
Mickey didn't make that stuff back then. And the biggest thing you could get was an N50 15 Pro Track.
Right. And that was about it would fit on a 10-inch rim, right?
Yes.
Something about that.
Mm-hmm. About 12 inches, 12 inches wide tire. The diameter, though, wasn't very tall. It was like 27 inches.
26, 27, right.
7, so it wasn't really tall, but it was wide.
Right. Right.
But
so you've got this car, you've got this, nitrous street car that, yeah, dude, 81, even whatever. I mean, you figure like an 81 Camaro of the era,
mm-hmm.
With a 350 and a 4-speed runs in the 16s,
yep.
probably.
Yep. The best I ever got out of it was a 1370 at 102.
Right.
But the problem is I couldn't use the nitrous out of the hole ever.
Mm-hmm.
Just, absolutely obliterate the tires. And even without, that 403, you couldn't rev it, but it made a boatload of torque.
Right.
So it was like, I had to walk it out of the hole, and then I would hit the nitrous in second gear. And that was something, I'd hear guys talk at the parking lot and stuff. And, yeah, that car, I said, if he hits second gear and he's ahead of you ain't going to catch him. That was the thing. I would do that. As soon as I would shift second gear, I was on the bottom, and it would go. But we kind of, talking with Chip and Bob down there, we kind of figured that if we could have had some honest, real racing slicks on it, and there again, this car had a stock torque converter in it. Nothing special.
Yeah, stock cam and junk.
No stock cam. I never even had the valve. I abused that car for, every day of its life I owned it.
Right.
I put almost 90,000 miles on it, and I never had the valve covers off of it.
And you spray nitrous at it with an early nitrous kit.
I would go through at least a bottle of nitrous a week in that car.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, back then you couldn't get it. It like they didn't do nitrous refilling, but a friend of mine who also used nitrous, Gary Spaniak, he knew a dentist. So Gary and I would take our bottles to this dentist, and back then they would have to send them off.
Okay.
So it's like we drop the bottles off on Monday and we get them back Wednesday, so that we, in time for street racing season,
Right.
in time
Right.
for and stuff. And once a week we would do that.
That's freaking awesome.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
it was.
Had to use the dental nitrous,
Yeah,
man.
dental nitrous, and we may or may not have finished the bottles off, not in the car.
Hey,
Yeah,
the statute of
allegedly,
limitations is passed, I believe, on that.
allegedly. I mean, this is an era before smartphones and videos of everything. So
Right.
it may or may not have happened. I will take the fifth on that.
Right. Right. And then so talk about the demise of that one, or do you still have that?
That car? No, I don't have that car. I wish I did. Sometimes. I actually thought
Sometimes.
the other day I saw a picture because it's on my backgrounds on my shop computer. I have
Okay.
all my cars and different stuff, and it popped up, and I looked at it and I went, "Yeah, I kind of miss that car, but it's probably long crushed by now."
Right. Right.
It was pretty tired when I had to sell it.
Right.
I ended up having to sell the car to pay my attorney fees.
Your attorney fees and
Yeah,
all
to
that. Yeah.
keep me from. I was actually looking at some actual prison time, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah, and fortunately, I had a really good attorney, but he was costly. He was costly.
That's
And had,
the good ones are.
yep, yep.
So where'd you move to from there? Where, kind of where do you get into
Well,
all of a sudden you've got a freaking super street car?
oh, I mean, that's been kind of a long process, because there for a while, after I lost, because I lost my license for 6 years. I actually had two 5-year revocations, but they ran concurrently.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was a pretty bad guy.
That'll happen.
And then I had an extra year tacked on for points. So I ended up getting a work permit because I had after a couple of years, I actually I had worked in a shop and I was driving a tow truck.
Okay.
And then the shop owner found out that I didn't have a driver's license. So, and this is another funny story. So again, my buddy Gary, I hope he's watching. Probably isn't. I don't know. I'll tell him to watch the
Yeah,
repeat.
he can watch the replay or whatever.
But he had bought this car. He was like buying and selling cars. That was his thing. I mean, I could go on. I could tell you stories of the stuff that we did way back then. But this car that he bought, and he races a car similar to it today. But he had another shop had built this car for an old man. It was an '84 Mercury Grand Marquis.
Okay.
Two-door.
Okay. Yeah.
And we're talking like 1985, 1986. It was a fairly new car.
Right.
And this shop had built this car, and it had a 439-inch big block Chevy swapped in.
Hell yeah.
Nitrous and a turbo 400. I mean, it was a pretty badass car. It ran, I think the best we got out of that was like 12, 20 something. Again, it would just annihilate the tires.
Right.
Back then. But anyway, I go to get my work permit, and I have to do this hearing, and they're asking, I had to be all humble and, yeah, I really need to get my license back. And, because it's a hardship, I'm married now, and I've got a kid on the way, and, I need to, and I have to do this, and they're like, they go through this formality. So I do the driving test. So I had to borrow a car. The only car I could borrow was Gary's Grand Marquis.
That is badass.
So from the outside, it was completely stock looking, stock wheels. It had white wall tires. The whole
Hell
thing
yes.
looked like an old man's car. So go out with the examiner, get in the car, and the only clue that there was something wrong is it had a turbo action cheetah shifter and a set of gauges hanging underneath the dash.
Okay. All right.
So I get in the car. Even the factory Ford, whoever built the car did a good job on it. The factory Ford door chimes work, the whole deal. I'm going through the whole thing of adjusting the mirrors, trying to make it look good for the driver, the examiner. And then I start the car, and it's got some wicked camshaft in it. I mean, it's just, and this guy's looking around like this, and then he looks down, and then he looks at me, and he's just like that, shakes his head. And I'm driving the thing, and I mean, the car drove really nice, nice and docile. I do this, and I passed the driving test. That's his new car. Yeah.
But it's like this.
It's like this.
It's like the boxy Grand Marquis.
But it was tan.
Oh, that's great.
The most boring looking car you'd ever see. And so I do the test. I come back, and I passed, of course. And he takes my picture and everything. And he's down like this, and he's writing stuff, and he just kind of looks up and goes, "That car isn't stock, is it?" No, it's not.
No, sir.
No, it's not. Sorry, sir.
That is freaking awesome.
But, it was just, that was, I tell the story, through the years and stuff. And every now and then Gary and I talk about it, and it's pretty funny.
That is awesome as hell.
Right.
Like, I couldn't even imagine pulling up in that grandma car.
Yeah.
Trying to get your license back. And this dude's like, "Are you shitting me, man?" Like,
it's really, it was funny then. I mean, we laughed about it all the way home, but, and then I had to buy another Trans Am. Immediately after I got my license back, I got to buy a Trans Am.
Right.
And I have nitrous. And then, of course, I'm married to my first wife, and we street raced it a couple of times. And then I thought, I better not do this anymore. So basically, I ended up bracket racing it a couple times.
Okay.
And then, as first marriages usually happen, ours fell apart. But by then, I had traded my Trans Am for an '87 Buick Grand National.
Ah, very nice.
My first new car. Oh, I loved that car.
Oh, and it was brand new even.
It was brand. I bought it brand new. Yeah, $17,435.
Nice. It's worth it.
Yep. And then it got stolen 8 years later.
Son of a.
Yeah. And my settlement from the insurance company was $17,200.
Huh.
So it's like I drove a Grand National for 8 years for $500.
Right. That's worth, I mean, every penny.
Right. And that was the world's worst bracket car. And that's kind of where I got into turbos for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so bad because turbo technology was so primitive back then.
Right.
I mean, the idea, what you did to make those faster is the pressure sensor for the wastegate.
Right.
You hole in the vacuum line to fool the computer, so it would give you more boost. And I talked to a couple other guys, and they actually had like those shutoff valves you can get like for.
That's what I had.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I had. It was like a needle valve, and it would change how much it would bypass.
Me, I was more kind of like the Jeremy Clarkson blunt instrument thing. It's just drill the hole a little bit bigger. Right. Yeah. So drill the hole a little bit bigger. And like, oops, too much. All right, let's get another line and put it on there, and let's try this again.
Yeah, and put a BB in it. And
Yep. Mm-hmm, yeah. So there was that. And then, I put the Chevelle together. And that was a car that I had bought in pieces from my friend Bob DeBonaventure, who worked for Chip. And I bought it in pieces. And Debbie actually helped me put that car together.
Cool.
In our 2-car garage.
Hell yeah. And that's this car.
That's that car, yes.
And was it purpose built bracket car, like that was its whole job?
Originally, it was going to be a fast street car.
Okay.
So it had stock suspension in it, and it wasn't tubbed at the time. And then it was something that she and I talked about it, and it's like the temptation I think would have been too great to go out and street race.
Right.
You know, I know that's like the thing today with the TV show and all that shit, but Florida they don't fuck around with street racing.
Right.
Um, so I thought, well, let's just avoid temptation, and I made it a race car, albeit it wasn't tubbed. And
Got it.
So,
but purpose built to do race stuff.
Well, and that one I did like back then. Super Chevy shows were like the thing.
Totally.
Our racing calendar revolved around Super Chevy and some of the other events, and then we would bracket race also.
So, real quick, what era are we here? Well, I guess not there, but like when you're getting started with the Chevelle.
Okay, when I'm getting started with the Chevelle, it's around 1990.
Okay.
1990, because I hadn't married Debbie yet. We got married in 1991.
Okay.
When we got married, it was like we set the date because it would be within a week of Super Chevy, so that I would never forget my anniversary.
I like that.
And so we did that every year, until they stopped, until it went away. And we had a lot of, I had a fair amount of success with it. I mean, I didn't win a lot, but I won a lot of rounds.
Totally.
And won a couple times and that kind of thing. And then it was like I was fighting the old traction demons with stock A-body suspension, because at that time it still had absolutely stock suspension in the back. And so it would do the old A-body twist.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Left front wheel like 3 feet in the air, and the right front about
like
2 inches,
or on the ground still.
Right, and it was kind of really hard to bracket race something that consistently. And then just one day I thought, I had read a bunch of stuff. I mean, I tried all the old school type things. I tried the old airbag
in the right rear, and yep.
And so, and I even tried. If you remember the old no hop bars, remember those?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, bolt to the top. That actually made it worse.
Oh, perfect.
Well, it would hook harder. So I ended up, I ripped one of the control arms out, one of the trailing arms out, measured it, took a piece of roll bar tubing and some other tubing, and I made solid solid trailing arms.
Right.
Put in it, and that cured it.
Hell yeah.
It would hook hard and go straight. I just had to every now and then grease the area, because back then you couldn't get Delaloon bushings or anything like that. You had to make everything,
Yeah.
And then of course I ended up tubbing it in my tube. And then that picture that you showed there, that's when I started when I was racing it in NHRA Super Street.
Super Street, right? Index class, which is 990.
1090.
Or 1090, right? Based on the 890, 990, 1090
level, as they call it. Which
totally.
Streets is every bit as hard as any of them.
And honestly, it's probably harder because any of the super gas guys that become super street legal can just put more in the delay or in the throttle stop.
Right. Yeah.
And then they're 155 mile an hour.
No, I mean
1090 car.
1090 car. I mean, the average super gas car now runs 180 miles an hour or something.
Right, like 3.5 or 4 seconds on the stop. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
I mean, my motor. I never had really any killer motors in there. I always used big block Chevys because they were stupid reliable.
Right.
And the best motor I had in that car, and the one that I won my Wally with, was it was a 60 over 427, so it was a 439, and it had a really small, small, it was a CC314, I think, crane.
Okay.
By 4560, if I remember correctly, but it was a solid lifter, no rollers. Couldn't afford that shit.
Right. Yeah, $100 cam versus a $500 cam. I mean,
right. And flat out, that thing would run like 1065. So
okay.
I'm on the throttle, something just like that, and go. Then when I finally built a 468, my good motor, that was on the stop for like almost 2 seconds,
Right.
because it would run like 960s, and I would slow it down to run 1090. But I always had better luck being chased and not being the chaser.
You're right.
You know, dial it honest, and you would just leg it out the back. I mean, there's so much. I mean, bracket racing has changed so much in the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years since I was doing it, that now you have a whole industry of guys talking about. Yeah, that was Bradenton there. Yeah, that was my 427 in that one. See
Okay.
The old style hood scoop there.
Right.
Yeah, and then that one there is when that's when I was bracket racing at Immokalee, pretty much.
Okay. All right.
When I got back into it, yeah, I like that picture there because the weather really sucked. We got rained out. We got rained. That's a typical Florida bracket race afternoon right there.
Perfect. Just getting rained out all the time.
Yep.
Klaus is here to say hi. Hi.
Oh,
Hi,
no,
Klaus.
I'm still looking at my car, so
No,
I can't see.
you can't. You guys can't see. He just jumped
There
up
he
here.
is. There he is.
He's gonna party with us
Okay, cool.
for a little bit here, I guess. So
Yeah.
there he is. Hello, big man. Okay. So you get into super street racing, you get into big tire racing, and then then what comes? I mean, bring us into now you're an idiot and you want to spend a week in a car.
Well, here's what happened. Okay, when I was super street racing, I was still working for somebody, and back then, no, this is that's
This
like,
one.
Okay, this one here. That was actually, I think this picture was in 2001.
Okay.
Last year, I quit racing super street in 2002. I was working for a shop, and I was making pretty decent money, but the idea, and it was just me, one other guy, and the shop owner. Nice. Yeah, I'm still pretty good.
You've got the margarita.
Yep, of course. And so I was taking 10 weeks off a year because you had to, for NHRA racing, you would take your best 6 finishes. And it would be, you would take your best 4 from in division, within division 2. So then you could take your best 4 from in division, and then you take your best 2 from out of division. So I would go out to Division 1, Division 3, Division 4, whatever. And so my boss kind of, he really didn't like that too much. And then in 2002, it was the second event of the year. It was at Orlando, and car comes off the 2-step and launches a connecting rod right out the side of the oil pan.
Perfect.
So, I pull off and blah, blah, blah. So I tow my broken shit back to the shop or back home. And he's like, so you're done racing for the week, right? You're not gonna do this again the rest of the year. And I looked at him, and it's like, well, I was planning on fixing my car and going, but whatever. So there was that. And then it was probably a couple weeks later, I had to end up, because back then, of course, we're working on late model stuff, and he wouldn't keep his scan tool updated.
Okay.
So I ended up dropping serious coin on a friggin' Snap-on Modus at the time, and
and I think those are like $3,000.
Back at $6,500.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's Snap-on. Remember.
All right. So you pay the Snap-on tax.
Right.
But either way, $6,500 for a regular dude
that I had to pay.
Right.
And then he's wanting to borrow it and wanting to use it for the shop, and it's like, I thought, fuck this. I'm gonna open my own shop. Then I can go racing when I want.
Right.
So I end up opening my shop, Advanced Automotive of Cape Coral, back in there we go.
Bam.
In April of 2003.
Nice.
Yeah, so I've been in business for 20 years. And then I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I can go racing whenever I want. So when did I go racing again? 2010, 7 years later.
Right. Right.
With the Chevelle, because then Bob had, by then he had left Chip and he had moved. He was like doing some stuff. Well, he came to work for me, so
Okay.
he's looking at the Chevelle in the corner, and that's how it all started. Him coming to work for me. He's like, I need to build you another motor for that thing. You need to go racing with this thing.
Right.
So we put the thing together, and this is like 2010, I think, and I bracket race it for like 2 years, and I am bored to tears.
Right.
It's just like I'm bored to tears. So then I'm doing something that's like, I want to build another street car. So I start cruising Craigslist, and I know you got the picture. There's this crappy blue Camaro that I see, and it's like, that'd be a killer street car. So I buy the thing. This is in 2010, mind you. I buy this thing. Or actually, I traded the guy an AR-15 rifle that I had like $400 in.
Okay.
For this thing.
And this is, I mean, it's a 76-ish.
76.
So
yep.
it's the big back window, like the
big
first year, the big back window.
Second year, the big back window.
Second year, the big back window.
The big aluminum bumpers.
But not entirely sought after at the time.
Not at the time, no. And I wanted them because I had a 78 before. I had a 78 Z28.
Right.
And the rubber nose ones. And even back then, the like 70 to 73s were getting out of reach, or if you found a project, they were usually a complete bucket of shit.
Right.
You would spend a whole lot of time on the thing.
Right.
So, well, I'll build a big bumper, because nobody else does. I always wanted something that was a little different.
Totally.
So
I mean, bang, a 76. And honestly, they only got better as they got older.
Yeah.
In that second gen, all the front suspension got a little better, and the geometries and stuff got a little better.
On the car there, if you pull the picture back up, those were very hard to find Krager Mach 8 wheels.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And at the time, I ended up selling them. I got pretty decent amount of money for them. Some days I thought, I'd like to have those wheels back.
Oh, hell yeah. Could you imagine making your street cruisers with those wheels?
Right. But, I mean, that was something when I traded in this rifle and I get that car and another brand new subframe that was all freshly rebuilt, a couple of carburetors, a couple of new Holley carburetors, a whole bunch of parts with the thing.
Cool.
And I drag the whole mess home and stick it in the shop. And it's like, okay, what the hell are we going to do with this thing? So it sits around the shop for a couple of years, and had the Chevelle back together. And then, I'm pretty active on Yellow Bullet then. I started everyone like
everyone was on the forums. Yeah.
So then Ray Iddings comes on Yellow Bullet and sends out a thing, South Florida racers, we need you, because remember Pastime was on back then.
Yep.
So it's like we need some of these cars for Pastime or whatever. So it's like, all right, let's the Chevelle was running, so we take the Chevelle to Pastime, and that was one where we got there at like 8:30 in the morning. This is Palm Beach International Raceway.
Right. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. And I made my pass at 2:45 in the morning.
Oh my God.
They filmed 7 shows, and I was in show number 5.
Oy. Oy.
Oh, and it's 2:45 in the morning. And remember, this is in August.
Okay.
It is 92 degrees at 2:45 in the morning, with like it was miserable.
Yeah.
But good time. So then I see this doinky looking short dude with a purple Duster and a U-Haul trailer. And who is it? It's fucking Eddie Miller.
Of course it is.
Yeah. And
the infamous.
I had read about Drag Week on Yellow Bullet.
On YB, yep.
Yeah. And it wasn't really that well known then. It wasn't, Drag Week was known by a select group, because it was like really I talked to like McConnell and some of the old OGs. And they're talking about how the first 5 years of Drag Week was like, like a family type thing.
It was a different thing. I mean,
It was a different,
when you only have 50 or 60 or 70
right,
cars, it's
right,
just
right. It's
it's a
very,
different thing.
very, yeah, very tight knit. And so it's like I see this Drag Week decal on it, and I didn't talk to him. I'm looking the car over and stuff, and I'm talking with Bob about this, and it's like, what's his drag? I mean, this sounds pretty hardcore or whatever. So then Drag Week 2012 happens, and it's like we put the live feed on. We're trying to work, in the live feed. We did absolutely no work that whole week. That was when
Glued to the
we were
live
glued
stream.
to it, and that was when Larson and Lutz were like going back and forth.
Uh-huh.
In
And
2012,
but they've got their OG cars. You've got the Nova and the OG 57.
right. And that was when when Mashmeyer was dominating modified power adder, and then he smacked the friggin' what was it? Wasn't a speed bump. It was somewhere he knocked the oil pan off the Camaro.
Right.
And they're fixing it on the side of the road. And they ended up having to, they couldn't fix it.
Right.
But
Right.
it was like, we're sitting here watching this, and it's like, I looked at Bob and I said, we need to do this. We need to do this. And it's like, so we need a car. All right. So it's like I start looking at all these classes and stuff and thinking, well, here's this daily driver class, and it's like, oh, they have a bracket race at the end of it.
And you're like, shit, the Chevelle.
And it's like, bracket racing and stuff. Yeah, I'm fair amount, and these guys don't have a bracket race. We'll be able to do that. And it's like, start looking. So then I download the rules, and this is like immediately after 2012. And it's like, I'm looking at this, and it's like, street race big block power adder. Let me go back and look at this. And this was back when street race big block power adder, the fastest car ran like 1050s.
Right.
It's like, shit. I looked at Bob and said, shit, if we can't build a car to run like, 10 O's.
Right. Right. Just a nitrous big block.
Yeah, we're a couple of retards.
Right.
So it's like, we need a car. So it's like, well, no, the Chevelle won't fit because it's backhaft.
Right.
So it's like, okay.
How about that?
And it's like,
how about that blue piece of shit?
How about this blue crap car sitting in the shop? So it's like, push the thing on there. And then we spent the next 11 months putting that thing together. I mean, and for the last 2 months, I was like there until like midnight, 1 o'clock, just thrashing on it. I mean, we built the whole thing in house.
Wow, nice.
I mean, I ended up. I mean, it had. I had to put floor pans in it because the guy had cut the rusty floor pan. It had rusty, had rust in it.
Right.
So the floor pans were cut out to arrest the rust. And then I bought another parts car, and it had some brand new floor pans in it. So it's like, hey, cool. I mean, there was a whole lot of work that went into this car.
I'll bet.
And
my timing may be off, but this is the basic car.
That is the car, right? Well, that's a year later.
Right.
That's at Tulsa in 2014. So we take the car, and I had bought a 565 for my Chevelle,
which is the bracket race motor of choice of the time. I mean,
but it was one of these motors that it's only got like 5 or 6 passes on it, and it had like it had a dark tunnel ram on it with 2 AED dominators.
Cool.
And it had a fogger nitrous system. That picture of me with the 2 engines.
Yeah.
That was the motor. Yeah, that's it right there.
Okay, got it. So yeah, two stages of fogger on it with it. I mean, it's a belt drive. It's serious. Right. This is a serious motor.
Right. So I thought, well, I don't want to dink around and don't want to dink around with 2 4. And I'd already sold the tunnel ram and the 2 dominators. So it's like, okay, well, I need a single 4-barrel, and I borrowed the Dominator off my Chevelle, which was a Da Vinci 1050 setup for 1090 racing.
Right.
So it had a special, the intermediate circuit was tailored to bring in more fuel to come off of a throttle stop.
Okay.
And it turned out it was very bad for drag and drive because it would just blubber and dump and glug fuel. The thing got like 4 miles to the gallon.
Perfect.
And
perfect.
Vapor law. We learned a lot on that first. We learned a lot on that first drag week. So there again, that's 2014.
14 again, and that's where we met. That's why I pulled
Yeah.
those ones out. But
yeah. So we get to drag week after, we literally finished the car. Let's see. The test drive consisted of me driving it around the block and loading it in a trailer. That's it.
Which is like most drag weeks,
right? Like most drag and drive guys
begin.
Right. So we get there, and he's like, "Okay, this is when it started in Bowling Green, and then went to Indy, Gateway, then to Memphis, then back to Bowling Green." So we're at Bowling Green, and Bob's like, "Okay, easy pass. Let's do an easy pass first. You leave the nitrous off." And I run like, what I run, 1050 something, whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
Immediately, like right on the fastest pass ever in Street Race Big Block Power Adder before.
Right. And you didn't even
start throttle,
right.
Just shifting it. So it's like, okay, we've never made a pass, so just make an easy pass to make sure the car goes straight down the track. So the next pass I come around, I run 997.
Sweet.
I'm like a half a second faster than the I had the class covered by a half a second. And then we found out about, on the drive to Indy and beyond, about how you don't set up your fuel system as a bracket car. You don't want to deadhead it. You want to have a return style fuel system, because the thing, and of course, then that particular drag week was record heat.
Of course.
It was like 100 degrees outside. You couldn't touch the roll cage. It got so hot.
Right.
And so it was vapor locking, and we were like pulling off every,
5 miles.
Every 5 miles or whatever. And the transmission would slip a little on the passes. And I'm thinking, I just reused the transmission that was in my yellow Nova that I screwed around with, another big block type car. And, that car ran like 11 O's on the bottle. So it's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And each run down the track, it slipped a little bit worse and worse. And then we get to Gateway, and that's when the transmission let go, And our drag week was done then. And I managed to limp the car back to the Drury where we stayed, and got a hold of my dad, and he came and picked me up, went down the gate. That was a long ass day and a long drive.
Jeez. Get out of here, you dog.
Jeez. Come on, dude.
Go away.
Oh, give him a raw chew or something.
Something, man. He's all over me. Get out of here.
Klaus photo bomb.
Yeah, exactly. I guess he's gonna be here.
Yeah, that's fine. That's okay.
Whatever.
So that was a long ass day, and we did the old drive of shame back home, and thinking, it's like, oh, if only we'd have done something with the transmission or whatever. So come back, and then I get back, and immediately I talk to Transmission Specialties about a transmission and get one of their fail-safe 400s and put in the car. And the motor, we reused it, and that's when we went to Drag Week 2014, where it started and ended in Tulsa.
Right.
And at that time, it's like, okay, I had a single plate on it for 13. So I talked to Monty Smith, rest in peace, about an NOS, I want to say Crossfire, but it's Crosshair.
Okay.
The Crosshair system.
Yep, and it had the
like
yep.
that.
Yep.
So him about modifying that into a 2-stage nitrous system. And he's like, "Oh yeah, you can do it or whatever." So I got one. I built it, did it, and I sent it off to him. Had him flow it and jet map it and everything.
Perfect.
Put it back in the car. So it's like, and Bob couldn't make it. So then Craig started. Craig came with me on that particular drag week, and again, we were pretty competitive, and Bill Fowler was like nipping at my friggin' heels the whole time. And
right.
And if you notice there in that picture, you see all the little, you can see some smoke there.
A little bit.
That's not tire smoke. It's hydrocarbon type smoke, oil.
Right. So is it eating itself alive?
Motor's getting a little loose, okay? And again, when I bought this motor, it was a nitrous motor, okay? So we get to the end, and Craig's like, "I got this in the bag," and it's like, dude, until I make the final pass, we have nothing to do. I mean, I was a bundle of friggin' nerves.
I'll bet.
And so we make the pass, and that was the first year they were having they were going to have that shootout.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I'll sign up for that. So then it's like, I'm going to turn the second kit on. We're going to put this car in the 8s, because my average then was like 930 something.
Okay.
And it's like, I'm going to turn the second kit on, put it in the 8s, make my pass. It comes off strong. I hit the thing, and what I had was I had an Edelbrock single stage controller.
Okay.
For the first stage. The second one, and the Edelbrock had a second one that would activate that. It wouldn't. You couldn't progress it. You couldn't.
Okay, so it was on off.
On. So I had a switch that said all or nothing.
I remember that switch.
The all or nothing switch. So I turned the all or nothing switch on, and it pulled like you wouldn't believe until about 1,000 feet.
Right.
And it just laid over, but I kept my foot in it, and it went 895 at 150 miles an hour.
Hell yeah.
Bones goes nuts on the PA and everything. And I noticed smoke at the back of the car. And it still ran. And it's like, no, that wasn't the smoke I saw.
That was right. That was previous to.
That was when I left. That was the pass where it went 895. It comes out hard, and and on the other end, the smoke is a lot more dense. I pull, and I was able to drive it back. I didn't leave any oil on the track. That was
nice.
Left no oil on the track. Get my time slip, and I noticed it's still smoking pretty good. So it's like, we probably shouldn't race this thing.
Right.
Put it in the trailer. I go to load it in the trailer, and it just starts mosquito fogging. It's like, I hurt this thing. I know I did.
It's yeah. There's something bad.
And what happened? I get it home, and I pull the heads off, and the motor still ran, but knocked holes in 2 pistons.
Okay.
Yeah, it just knocked. And so the first thing I do is I take pictures of it, and I sent them to Monty. And I said, is the tune-up okay or whatever? And we're looking at all the flame fronts, like all the flame patterns on the top of the pistons. And he's like, no, he said the tune-up looks good. Aside, it didn't nip the spark plugs. Spark plugs were good.
Right.
Like, and he's like, do me a favor, see if you can measure if you can get something in there and measure the top of the piston. Well, it turns out that these nitrous pistons were NA pistons.
Perfect.
So it was just cylinder pressure that just knocked a hole in each one.
Damn. And 2014, I'm being told by, of course, the one and only, the Skeletor, the Don McGinnis. He wants you to tell the story about the staircase in Tulsa.
Too much about that, because I drank 3/4 of a bottle of Jack Daniels.
That'll happen. That will happen.
Yep. That's one of those I don't remember. I cannot recall.
I cannot recall. That reminds me of
election, Senator.
I believe it was twice you fucked me up. Once at the Angus Inn in Great Bend.
Yeah, that was
and
fun.
You guys stayed up. You and Debbie and we need to talk about Debbie here soon, but
Yeah.
you and Debbie waited up until I it was maybe 2:30 or 3 in the morning.
It,
It was late.
it was like 1:30, I think.
Maybe it was 1:30. I can't remember.
1:30.
Oh, no, it was 1:30, but it was 2 hours behind your normal. So
Oh yeah, yeah,
it was
right.
3:30 your
Yeah,
time.
our body
What
clock.
one thirty our time.
Right.
And you guys stayed up to have a margarita with me
Hmm.
out of the margarita transport vehicle,
Yep.
which was the year you brought the where is
Oh,
it? This one.
yes.
Oh, it's there it is.
Yeah, that's where it's currently sitting too. In my.
Currently sitting in the garage, but
Yep.
we affectionately named that the margarita transport vehicle because you brought the margarita bar in the trunk of the thing,
Yes.
track to track to track. But
Mm.
we, for whatever for some reason, just never crossed paths. So
Right.
by the last day, you were like, you have to have a margarita with me at the Angus Inn, and we were staying at
Right.
the Angus Inn. So
Yeah.
yeah, you stayed up until 1:30, again 3:30 your time,
Right.
and you proceeded to feed me two of your homemade margaritas. And
The Racer X readers, as we call them.
it,
Yes.
right, and yeah, straight, yeah. I mean, Stevie can say it. I almost tipped over backward in the chair,
I
and
remember
then
that.
I was like, I guess we have to go. And I kind of did like this was how I was
That
walking.
phased me at all.
Right. Yeah, I was trashed. I mean, as drunk as I've ever been in
Yeah.
like a minute.
Yeah.
And then like no more than 6 months later, we're at
Hmm.
Sick Week
Yep.
and you brought moonshine.
Oh yeah.
And I'm standing on the stage,
The
the
Moonaritas.
Moonarita, right?
Yep.
And I'm hammering
Made 'em-
the Moonarita.
made 'em- Yeah. Hmm.
And yeah, we're the award ceremony is going on, and at some point, and you're doing it wrong when Chad Reynolds tell you to shut up. But Chad Reynolds pulled me aside and goes, "You need to shut up.
Yeah.
You are super drunk." And I was like, "No, I'm not, Chad." Yeah. So a dude, Chad, that never stops talking ever, tells
Hmm.
you that you're too fucked up.
Yeah.
Then Robert Williams got you again. So
I when you said we got drunk was when we first when you brought me those 3 bottles of whiskey at Drag Week 2015
right.
when we
So
were at the Sawmill Creek resort.
correct.
Remember that? Yeah.
Correct. Yep. Yeah.
Right.
And you were riding with, was it 15 or was it 16?
It was
It
15.
was 15.
No,
Yep.
no, sorry, that's right. It was 16. That's right.
Yeah, I think
Right.
it was 16. That's the only one I didn't finish because I blew the trans up in my car.
Right. Yeah. You and Brad showed up while Craig and I and Frank Saponaro and Bob Bartram were all under the cover. We're under
The awning at the hotel.
yeah, like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm running valves. We're doing maintenance on our cars,
Right.
and you show up with all these bottles of whiskey. So we had to stop and like drink whiskey,
Well, screw it. Then we're going to drink
Yeah.
whiskey. That's what we do.
whiskey, and then get back to I should probably finish running the valves on the car, don't you think?
Right. I mean, this is great, but but no, and that was my like not so like
Mhm.
under the covers attempt of
And,
at the
and,
time you were the manager.
you brought me this.
I did. I did. I brought you a couple of bottles of
You brought me
whiskey
3
through the
actually.
years.
You brought me 3 that night, which
And right.
I didn't expect. Because like here's one to drink, and then here's one to one to take with you, which is around another Stranahan's Yellow Label,
Right.
and then the Diamond Peak.
Right.
You know,
And at the time you were the head honcho of the Black Hat gang.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I was like, I think that could be something I maybe want to be involved with. And what better way than
to ingratiate yourself with
than to lube up the El Presidente of the Black Hat gang. And so it worked, and I became a member. And that's that's kind of a long gone drag week sort of thing. But but I mean, it was kind of
the group is still there on Facebook, but we're not very active.
right. But I mean, we're talking. I mean, Scott Kleppinger,
Mhm.
Scott Brown, yourself, Frank Saponaro, Brian Loans of all people.
Yep.
I mean, oh yeah, Slimbo.
Yep. Slimbo.
Cicino,
Hmm.
who's joining us tonight, by the
Yeah.
way, which you
Yeah.
can see
Right there.
right there. There he is. That's got a good story behind it. If you've never heard that PRI story,
PRI story.
that's
Yep.
right.
Yep.
But yeah, so I was
That's
pretty
never a
excited.
story which will live
Oh,
in infamy.
and Don McGinnis. Don McGinnis is a member as well.
Yes.
But yeah, that was pretty excited to be like inducted into the Black Cat gang, and I still have my black hat,
Yep.
and
I
that
still mine's back at. I would have worn it, but it's at the shop.
mine I've
But it's dead.
crushed
Yep.
through the years,
Yep.
unfortunately, and it's I'd had it for a long time, but
Mhm.
it has
Probably
met its demise.
destroyed, but it actually it rode with me the last two drag weeks. I just threw it in the back of the Nova.
Nice,
It was
nice,
too trash to wear. But so now I have it. It's sitting on a. I think it's on my fan in my office at the shop.
totally,
I
totally.
still.
But yeah,
But
it's the friendship built off of whiskey because like
yeah. For,
here's some whiskey, and then
mhm.
next time I see you, you bring me a bunch of libations, and then I see you when I bring you a libations, and
Yep.
you bring me libations, and we just kind of go
Yep.
back and forth,
This one from this year.
right? Right.
We have,
That's the Bandamere 65th anniversary
yes.
one, and that one you brought to the top of Pikes Peak, and it popped the top.
Yes, and it popped the top. And as a matter of fact, since you said that, I'm going to pour a shot with my
Yes.
Pikes Peak
Ah, yes.
shot glass that I purchased at Pikes Peak.
Hell yeah.
So
That's a good segue real quick. We're gonna jump over some cars.
we're going to jump over some cars,
We're
but
gonna jump over
this
some
is to
cars,
this
but
is to the Biz Bomb and Pikes Peak
that's
and
cool.
my friend Adam Dory.
That's cool.
Great.
Drink. And I think I told you when I got that, it isn't very good,
Ooh, that's
but
good. Oh no,
it's got a good label.
mm-hmm.
But
Oh, but that's very good actually.
so Pikes Peak is kind of cool. And
Mhm.
real quick, I just want to touch on David's trip
Okay, yeah,
because this happened kind of concurrently with your trip.
yeah, and he actually asked me if I wanted to go on it with him, and I would love. Like I told him, I said I think it's going to interfere with Rocky Mountain Race Week just because of how close the dates are together. And as things turned out, I would have missed Rocky Mountain Race Week had I gone. But he
Right.
had a hell of an adventure. He really
Totally. So I don't have a ton of pictures of him
did.
on this adventure because, like I told you before, like ultimately I want to have him on his own,
Yeah.
and or have one with you and him,
Hmm.
um, kind of talking about that. But
Yeah, because
so
there's our
the square body Suburban
Yep.
is Turbo LS,
Yep.
and they brought this to Alaska from the Key West, right?
Well,
From the
actually,
southern.
he actually started from his home, which is north of Atlanta,
Okay.
and he drove down to Key West to start. So they added an extra like 1,200 miles to the trip.
Okay, so they started in Georgia, go to Key West,
Right.
and then
And
go to Alaska to
go to
compete in
Alaska.
Alaska Speed Week.
Yes. Yes. Going
And then
up the Alcan Highway. Um, told me I was watching. I mean, he was texting and Facebook messaging me the whole periodically, and I was watching him on Glimpse. Yes, he is a gangster, Chris.
yes, he is. And
Uh,
Chris and Phil did this same trip, but not quite as
well,
far
right.
with a lot of extra stuff. But and I'm gonna have Chris and Phil on at some point.
Yeah,
But
that's. But anyway,
um,
I'm talking with him, and I had him have a glimpse link. So I watch, and they get to the border, and it's like they're not moving, you're not moving, or whatever. And I don't hear from him. And a couple hours later, he goes, "Yep, they searched us."
well,
They
I mean,
pulled-
why wouldn't you? I mean,
yeah,
look at what you're
right,
driving.
right.
And I
So
mean, it had a window at the time,
yeah, it did. I mean, yeah, I think it was the Alcan that cost him that window, or
right?
Dalton. Um, but it was those frost heaves he was talking about. They got some he was telling me they got some serious air on the frost heaves. You know, and
Hell yeah.
I was talking with Dave Schroeder about it, and he goes, "Oh yeah, man. As soon as you get into Canada, the roads are terrible." You know, and
I'm
he would
sure. I mean,
live,
right.
he lived right. You know,
But at the same time that he's doing this, you have built the Biz Bomb.
yeah. Well,
And this is built out of, this is a roadkill car.
that's where it was on the show when Freiberger and Finnegan fished it out of the junkyard that Andy Moss owns.
Right. Right. And it ended up, I mean,
There.
they drove it up Pikes
Andy,
Peak.
where are my tags, dude?
Right.
I've been
Right.
after. I've been after. I bought the car from a mutual friend and had him ask about the tags and whatever. And then Andy actually messaged me and become Facebook friends. And I said, "Where's the tags at? I want them." He's like, "Oh, well, when I find them, I'll send them to you."
Hell yeah, dude.
I just
Hell
keep
yeah.
it's all in fun. I actually put another collector tag on the front that has 454 in it, which is funny because now the car has a big block in it. On the show, it had the original engine and transmission in it.
It was like a 283 in Power Glide.
Power Glide car.
Right, right. And you've put it into a big block Chevrolet and a 5-speed TKX.
Yeah, TKX 5-speed. I put a 9. And I put a 9-inch in it because I bought the car and it came with a 12-bolt.
Right.
And it's like, okay, yeah, we'll just, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I got an old school Doug Nash 5-speed still. It's like, let's build this thing old school. It'd be really cool. Do the 12-bolt. And it's like, okay, well, Nash is non-overdrive, but it's close ratio in the first 4 gears. So it's like, all right. So we need a 308 in the back. Okay. So if I'm going to take this and drag and drive it, if I break it, first off, nobody's going to have Doug Nash 5-speed parts.
Right.
Nobody's going to have 12-bolt parts. Okay, screw this. Let's put a 9-inch in it, and let's put a modern overdrive trans in it that will stand up to a big block's torque.
Right.
And then, of course, trying to release the TKX. So it's like, okay, I got one of those and put in it. So it was funny because the Biscayne, I got the car probably 2 years ago. I actually had found out about it going up. Well, I had talked to the guy that Matt Hogan.
Yeah.
He would buy and sell the roadkill cars and stuff. So I told him, I said, if the roadkill Biscayne ever comes up for sale, let me know. I want the car. And it's like, didn't hear anything. So I saw a post. And he's like, I'm going out to the zip tie drags and I'm taking the roadkill, taking the first car, that Buick convertible that they took.
Totally, yep.
And the Biscayne. And so I messaged him and said, dude, I told you I wanted the Biscayne.
Right.
You know what? Yeah. So we worked out a thing. I ended up buying it. And this is like 2 years ago. And I went to Holly dealer school and picked the car up, brought it back. I drove it a couple times. It had a very tired 454 in it from a 3/4 ton truck.
Okay.
And, the car has an interesting story after this show that I could spend a whole lot of time on, but I won't. So it's like, well, I'm going to build an engine for it, and I'm going to put a stick shift in it. And I had bought a pair. I went on eBay. Yeah, I bought a pair of clutch and brake pedals off eBay. Before I took delivery of the car. So it's like, I remembered it was a 283 Power Glide car.
Right.
So it's like, got these things, and I guess 67 and 68 share the same pedal box, blah, blah, blah. So I end up getting this super rare, paid like through the nose for these things. Get the car, and I notice, the hell's wrong with the brake pedal? Why is it so small? This thing has stick shift pedals in it already.
It already had a third pedal in it.
Had a third pedal in it. So it's like, okay, this is like fate. So this car is going to have a stick in it.
Hell yeah.
So it's like, and my plan was, of course, Freiberger and Finnegan took it to the top of Pikes Peak, and then they couldn't bring it back down. They melted the brakes off of it, and
it was 4-wheel drums.
4-wheel drums, and as it, you can see here, and funny, it overheated on the way up to the summit. Sounds familiar. I never took the hood off though. So it's like the engine, I guess, from trying to, engine brake it on the way down, the engine said, I'm out, and, the engine has left the chat.
Right.
So the
Right.
car, and Andy told me, that, Freiberger traded in the Biscayne for like a K5 Blazer or something. So he
Okay.
went the car again, and then it went through a couple owners before I got it. So it's like the thing I want to do with this car. I fell in love with the car when I saw it on the show. It's
Right.
like that's I never really liked GMB bodies, but just something about that particular year
Like that
and
one.
that one car there, and it's a post car. It's not a hard top.
Right. So the windows don't rattle. It doesn't do any of that stupid shit.
All that kind of stuff. And it's like that car needs a big block and a stick, because GMB bodies, that's back then, you saw a lot of the cars, way back then. I think it was I think Motion and Burger, something, a couple of those dealers back in the 60s, actually, because 67, you couldn't get a 427 in a Biscayne,
Right.
but they made them,
Right.
some,
Motion or Yenko
yeah,
or
right,
some Landy,
right, exactly.
someone.
They're drag race things because the Biscayne was the bottom base trim, the lightest of the cars, that kind of stuff. Light, yeah. The Biscayne, when I rolled it across the scales at Bandamere with my big ass in it, 4,160 pounds that thing weighed.
What?
4,160.
Wow.
Yeah, baby got back.
Baby got a lot of back.
Yeah, baby got a lot of back. So the car sat around, and it's like, I told Debbie, it's like, what we really need to do, it's like, we need to do a road trip with the car, and I want to take it back to Pikes Peak. And, come out, see Adam, and, see Joe Barry, that kind of thing.
Right.
Hang out a couple days, and then drive home. I can make a big, long road trip out of it. So then this year comes around with the thing about with Bandamere and how we're at race week we're going back to Bandamere for a final time.
Right.
So Debbie's like, why don't we take the Biscayne on Rocky Mountain 1? And then we'll take the Nova on race week. And it's like, well, okay, I guess we could do that.
Yeah.
And so it's like my original plan for the car was to do a powertrain swap. Like, all right, let's just go ahead and I'll put a fresh
stick
engine,
a 468 in it or something, and
fresh engine, stick shift, and an EFI conversion. That's it.
he laughs.
Yeah.
So $30,000 later.
$35,000 later, it's a full-on build.
Right.
It's like my buddy Steve Dewar, who does not do any kind of social media at all, and he is, a very good friend of mine, and one hell of a fucking mechanic. And he's a longtime circle track racer, won a lot of features, stuff like that. He helped me build this car in 3 months.
Hell yeah.
And it's like, so, it's like, it's funny how it's one of those things that things kind of get out of hand really quick. You know what I mean?
And yet they snowballs.
They snowball. It's like,
right. But it needs disc brakes. But if it gets disc brakes, then it needs control arms. And if I'm going to have it apart for control arms, then I better do.
Right. With the control arms, it's like, okay, I had bushings, I had ball joints, had all this stuff. And it's like, well, we're on a time crunch here. And it's like, nah, let's just get some Global West tubular arms and put them on there.
Right. $1,000.
Yeah. It's like,
yeah. Oh, well, if we're going to do brakes, let's just do good brakes. $1,000.
Well, I saved a little money there and used CPP, Chinese performance part. I mean, classic performance part.
What I mean,
but
either way, I mean, yes, as things tend to do, they get a little out of hand, and next thing you know, you've got a completely restored, total piece of shit
from underneath. It's really, it's all new, and it's like, well, let's the 12 bolt. Yeah, I'm going to need to rebuild the posi, do this, and it's like, screw this. Let's call Mosier and get a 9-inch for the damn thing. Bolt it in and be done.
And then you've got third members you can change with whatever else you've got in the fleet. So
I'm thinking, and as it turned out, it did work out that way. If I have a problem with the third member, I can pull it out and swap it.
it turns out that you ended up having a problem.
And it turned out that I had a problem. I had an axle bearing blow apart and pass all kinds of metal through the housing. This is on the way home. Total freak thing. I mean, it's like, we're working it out with Mosier now. I mean,
right.
To get it fixed and everything. And
but long story short,
take care of that. So
you drive this junk
mm-hmm.
from Fort Myers, Florida.
Yep.
To Kearney, Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of you're channeling your inner David Williams. You're channeling your inner Rich Guido.
Yeah, I'm only for me it's only 1,750 miles one way.
Right. So it's like and yeah, guys like that are like, that's super cute.
Yeah.
You pussy.
Yeah.
But either way, you still drive the thing 1,750 miles to compete on race week and do what Freiberger and Finnegan couldn't do, and that's get it to the top and the bottom
mm-hmm.
of Pikes Peak.
Right, and getting altitude sickness in the process and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right. It's part of the deal. And you guys, I mean, you did you got the oxygen tanks just like they did in the show.
I should have sent you the picture of that. Because Chris had us do this photo op where Debbie and I are sucking on the oxygen things and looking like we're drinking beers.
Perfect.
Perfect.
But you get it there. You
mm-hmm.
compete on race week.
Yep.
And you do successfully get it up and down Pikes Peak.
Yeah.
And this is your photo.
Up. Yep. She did not like going up. When we pulled into the Summit parking lot, it was at 250 degrees.
Oi.
Yeah. Biscayne was pissed off at me.
Well, and the altitude, the air's not as thick. It doesn't cool as well. None of the stuff works as well.
And it's 36 degrees outside at the Summit.
Right. And still overheating.
And it's still overheating.
Right. So, and then you successfully do make it to the top. You make it back down. You break the beams and you come to me and you go, dude.
Yeah.
We're done.
I look like
you did. You guys both look like you went through it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I mean, no big deal. You get back down. You start on your trip back home, and
the axle bearing failure. And spent 4th of July with my son.
Yep. So David kind of got through his, and he's got a lot of like world outside of the drag race world because he does a lot of other stuff. Like he does cannonball type stuff.
Yeah, he's involved in the cannonball community. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean that's a whole different kind of entity with guys, and obviously kind of like what we do. Everyone's spread out. Not a bunch of people live in the same place. So all of a sudden you have an additional amount of homies to get you taken care of, and you do end up. Did you guys end up driving that the whole way home?
What we did was we stopped at the Alabama-Georgia border, and then I called David, and told him what was up. So he managed to grab Mike Finnegan loaned us his open trailer, and he and his co-pilot Bradley Young, they came and picked us up. And it's like, we need to get to Summit because we got to get another center section and parts.
Right.
And it's like, we're looking at the time, and of course it's raining and stuff.
Of course.
We're riding in the back, and I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know if we're going to make it or not. But then I'm sitting here thinking, okay, these are two David's in the passenger seat, Bradley's driving. And it's like, Debbie's kind of a little freaked out, and I looked at her and I said, you're riding with cannonballers. They know how to drive in adverse conditions, etc.
Right.
Plus, they live here. They know the thing. Bradley got us to Summit with 10 minutes to spare before they closed.
Hell yeah.
And then it's like, okay, we decide, we were originally, the thought was we were going to change the center section in summer yeah, that's true. Sorry about that, Mike.
The trailer fender you trashed
David,
further than it was already.
David started it with the Suburban, and I finished it. And then he ended up cutting the fender off with a death wheel.
Perfect. So it's the Williams fender.
Right, exactly. So our original plan was to change the center section in Summit's parking lot, but then of course they're closed. So it's like, all right, screw this. Let's go get something to eat. We'll go to I'll check into the hotel, and we'll do it then. Well, then that turned into working half the night, trying to find the thing. And then I find the trashed axle bearing, and it's like, oh shit, we got to go back to Summit. We got to get
right. We got to get another one. This is a whole other day.
This is the 3rd of July we're talking about here. So it's like, okay. And so it's like, Summit's open on the 4th of July, so we can get the parts, but can we find someone to press them on and off? And David reached out to his to another Transcon buddy, and we went to a shop on the 4th, and they had a press, but it wasn't. It couldn't handle the axle. It wasn't big enough.
Right.
So we ended up just
whiz wheeling it off.
Dinner, and I staying overnight with David and his girlfriend, and had a good time. And then the next day, we end up getting the things pressed on and off, and then drove it the rest of the way home.
Hell yeah.
600 and whatever miles.
Nice. So it did do the whole trip.
It did do the whole trip. It did about 100. Well, actually, from the border down to McDonough, then back and around the Atlanta metro area, we probably put 150 miles on the back of a trailer.
Right.
As well.
But it pretty much, like, where you exited the route, you entered the route for the most part.
For the most part, yeah.
I mean, a few twists and turns aside, but it made.
Yeah.
I'm going to call it. It made the trip.
It did.
Two from up down.
Right.
And it pretty much, it seems like every drag and drive you do from now forward is a redemption tour of some previous one.
Well, yeah, the Nova. I mean, we're gonna coming to 2.0 with the Nova, because you remember last year. Tulsa,
I do.
Where
I do.
And Jim Parkinson, duking it out for Outlaw Street. He explodes his ring and pinion, and it's like, I'm in second place. And it's like, and I remember I make a pass, and then you come up to me and you go, congratulations, first pass. And that was when the motor had locked up, and I said,
right,
no, not so fast.
Right.
I had blown up my motor on that pass, and like that happened on our first 2.0 with David and I, with the whole cylinder head debacle.
Right.
We managed to back our way into third place. Well, some guy with a 10-second car backed his way into the Outlaw Street.
Totally.
Win. So the Redemption Tour Part 2 is bringing the Nova back and making a good showing and finishing 2.0.
Hell yeah. That's a good segue. This is you and David with his old Lexus.
Yeah, and I love this picture. But it also makes me sad at the same time, because I know what happened to the black Lexus, and it was an awful thing. And just, I mean, I can talk about it if you want me to, but it was one. David was thrashing to get this thing ready last year, and we were off at Rocky Mountain Race Week with the Nova,
right,
where we won Outlaw Street, by the way. And
bam.
Bam. There we go.
Just like that.
And David is thrashing his ass off to get this car done. And he had the keys to my shop. And he's working throughout the night, and he's got an inflatable air mattress in the showroom.
Okay.
Sleeping there. He's living in the shop.
Right.
Gets the car done and test drives it, and he's coming to the house. It's like, he's going to come to the house. He's going to drive it. He's going to drive it around, hook the trailer up, go to Atlanta and get Bradley, and then meet us,
Right.
And then I get a phone call from him saying that I was in an accident. It's like, what?
Yeah, like your heart's just
literally around the corner from my house. So I'm, and Debbie's with me. And I get there, and there's the Lexus is in the middle of the intersection, and there's some white Jeep Cherokee. Long story short, some inattentive little girl is on her phone, runs the light, runs into the side of him, and he tries to avoid it. Thank God he did, um, and he was lucky that he didn't hit the cage with his head.
With his head, yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have him today. And I'm sitting here, and it's just like I can see that he's pissed off, as I would be.
Right.
He's heartbroken. I can see this. I mean, I'm his dad. I know.
Right.
And my heart broke for him, and it's just like I'm trying to contain, because this girl, she's like, I don't know, whatever, and it's like I'm just sitting here thinking, you just shut your fucking mouth.
Right.
And as it turned out, there's some things going on and stuff. He wasn't found at fault. She wasn't found at fault, even though it was her fault.
Right.
And long story short, the car was destroyed. So we towed it back to the shop, and we ended up pulling the motor. We pulled the motor out of it and put it in the Nova because I had hurt the, yes. Yep, the containment seat absolutely saved his life. Unquestionably. The Nova, the Nova had been hurt, and Sick Week was coming. So I needed the motor, for Sick Week. So we pull the motor out of the Lexus and put it in the Nova. And it ended up, me and David and another friend of ours, we pretty much stripped the car. The remains of it are still in the back of the shop because I still need to pull one door and some of the glass out of it.
Right.
And big props to Kevin Smith at KSR because he provided David with a replacement.
He gave him a car, right?
He basically gave him the car. Yeah, I mean, he sold it to him for nothing.
Yeah.
It was something that David had to pull the motor and stuff out of it. Yep, there it is. The green Lexus. Yeah. So.
Oh, and then he says then his motor decides to crack a sleeve.
Yeah, that was funny. Yeah, on the last day of Sick Week, I mean, the Nova's running really good. And we finally figured out, we were trying to figure out why it was not so responsive to the, yes, it did. It went, the Nova ran better than it ever did at Sick Week.
That's all. And that was like a 370-inch deal.
370 Texas speed, short block, and put some RHS LS3 replacement heads on it. As David said, the cheapest square ports he could find.
Right.
Direct port. And I mean, it worked. The thing worked. And then we turned the boost up on the last pass.
Of course.
Trying to do some things because, I mean, Sick Week, I was running, Super Street small block power adder. And I mean, I'm running against guys like Clark and all those other
right.
guys. So I brought a knife to a gunfight. But we were trying to get the car to run. We were trying to get the car to crack a 7. And as it turned out, it let go. And it was a combination of two things. It cracked the sleeve on the thing. And also, it lifted the heads. Because as Todd Mashmeyer told me, he's like, you got the wrong head studs in that thing. They tend to stretch. And that's exactly what, because it didn't torch anything. It just lifted the head a little bit and then set it down. So that one, sent that off. We sent my dead one off. I've got my engine back from Todd now. My heads are at a machinist shop now here locally. A guy that I just found who's another old school guy that from way back, but he does a lot. He does like a full service machine shop and stuff.
Totally.
And so Todd had told me, better have those heads looked at just in case. And it's like, all right, blah, blah, blah. So we're waiting on the heads to get back so we can put the Nova back together.
So the Nova is coming back to 2.0 this year?
The Nova is coming back to Drag Week.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. The Nova's coming back to Drag Week and 2.0. I had filled out the expression of interest for Death Week.
Okay.
And was going to take the Biscayne, but there are a couple of issues with the car um, that I'm working with some manufacturers on some warranty issues,
Totally.
and the engine that I used, the 461, it was an old bracket race engine, so I repurposed it and I refreshed it, and it's got so much piston slap, it sounds like a diesel when it's cold. So it's one of these things that I don't trust it. And I
Totally.
just put 5,200 miles on it, but it's one of these that, I mean, Death Week, we're talking 8,000 miles of driving this thing. So
And
I have to build another motor, you know,
and long miles in a
and
day.
long
And you're
miles.
talking
I'm not
long.
really the long miles in the day doesn't bother me so much. I'm more worried about Debbie because and she's a trooper through all this stuff.
Well,
But
I mean, like this photo, it's like
mhm.
105 degrees inside,
Oh yeah, we were just
and
we were worn out.
but she's still sitting there with you.
Yep. Hmm. Yep.
So, and you guys are the best thing. This is a great segue into you guys as well.
Yeah.
But the best thing, I mean, you guys wear the same stuff.
Yeah. That's her idea.
It's the best thing ever.
Yeah, we look like a couple of high school kids, but hey, what the hell?
Oh, it's awesome. I just love it. Like Stevie and I just talk about it all the time. Like we are just like you guys are the couple. Like you're the race couple. You guys are great, and we just love hanging out with you guys, and
Mm.
love that you guys are wearing the same stuff all the time. And yeah, talk about bringing Debbie on these and
Well,
getting her involved in this. And I kind of get it, like riding, kind of riding shotgun with like, man, if stuff goes bad, like it's pretty much me.
yeah,
Like she can help. She'll
it's
do,
pretty
she'll do some stuff and she'll be a trooper. But like, man,
right.
I'm
Well,
solo here.
right. Like, I had a couple of, like a couple of issues, like with the Nova, um, that weren't really anything too bad, you know. So it was something, but like with the Biscayne, it's like, all right, the rear end's broken. There's something wrong here. Um, we have, we really have two options. We can limp it to David's house. And I can get a rental car and drive home, and then come get it with my truck, or we can try and fix it. But then she's not a mechanic.
Right.
She would do whatever I need her to do. I mean, she would hold wrenches, do whatever. But it's something that I mean, there's just you know there's the whole physicality, man woman type.
Well,
What I'm
I mean, there's that.
saying.
There's just, I mean,
Mhm.
ignorance, and it's not to say
Right.
stupidity. There's a
No,
different thing. Like she just doesn't.
no,
If you
right.
asked her for a half-inch drive, you know, 9/16 socket, she
She
would
could
look at
find
you.
she could find it. Yeah, yeah.
She
She
could
would.
find it, but it would be, like, dude, that's not
It's like, hey, pull the plugs out of this. She can't do that.
right, right.
That kind. And I mean, she's been a housewife for however long. Since David was about this big.
Right.
So, but I've been a mechanic all my life. It's a whole different thing. So it's just I know that, like, if I had a catastrophic failure, like, we'll go back to 2.0 for a second, the very first one in 2020,
Yep.
when on the first pass, you remember that, on the
Uh-huh.
first, when I, pushed water out of the motor,
Right.
and it was just like, I was so tired, for one, because we had thrashed to get this car together. Um, and it was like the drag week the year before, we thrashed and thrashed, and I blew it up on tech day. So
Right.
that immediately went through my mind on 2.0. It's like, oh, here we go again. And David wouldn't let me quit.
Yep.
I was like, let's go get the trailer, and he's like, fuck that. We're gonna pull the head off. We're gonna fix this thing. And I'm like, okay, whatever. You just do it. You know,
Let's go. Giddy up.
I'm just like, if you can get somebody to, it's like, when we saw that the head was trenched, that was really what got me. It's like, oh.
Right.
And I mean, he made it happen. He got a hold of Rowdy Yanes, and Rowdy lived, I don't know how far from Tulsa, because he was just there watching. And the only caveat was, he had to go. He wanted to be introduced to Mike Finnegan, because David knew, David was really good friends with Mike.
Right.
And as it turned out, Mike had just blown up Blasphemy and left for the hotel. He wasn't in the best of moods.
Right.
He was gone. So I mean, it was a bad first day for both of us. And so they spent the most of that. And this is on a remember, this is on a Sunday night in Tulsa.
Right.
And so he manages to they get Eric Weingartner out of bed.
Hell yeah.
And Rowdy welds the head up, and then Weingartner surfaces the thing, and David brings it back. Meanwhile, I'm at the track. It's me, Red Hat Scotty's changing the motor in his car.
Right.
And Dennis and Alex Taylor are working on her car because they blew up the transmission or something.
Was it the 55?
No, it was the Camaro.
Okay.
It was the last year that they ran the Camaro. It was the last year they ran the Camaro. They were on Bobby's lift.
Okay.
And so there was the three of us, and the whole pit area was dark, except for our little lighted area.
Yep.
And it was like, I picked up all the tools and arranged the tools and grabbed all the parts that were thrown around in the thrash and got everything organized, because it's like, okay, because I'm talking, David's texting me. He's like, we're doing this. I should be back, whatever. I said, I'll have everything ready.
Right. Just plop it on and
go. And it's like, gets back. And then we end up having to pull the other head off.
Of course.
And, this is like 3:00 in the morning, and he sends me to the hotel. I said, yeah. And he's like, the refrigerated trailer he's talking about, the friggin' compressor kept kicking on, and it was loud as and it's like, so he sends me off to the hotel to get some sleep, and I got maybe an hour. I couldn't sleep.
Right, something like whatever.
I was totally ragged. He wanted me to get some sleep because I was doing the driving. He was doing the mechanicing and the tuning. I would drive. So and it's like, we get the one head on, and we figure out we have to pull the other head, and that's like, so do that. Long story short, it's about 11:45 the next morning, and Finnegan comes over, gives us some water. Great, we're talking with him and stuff, and
right,
we end up getting to Topeka, to where I can just drive down the track. It's like, we're just going to drive down the track, and we were certain, as we were chasing issues all week.
Right.
And we finally found them at Noble, where the car finally went, 892? I think?
Right.
It's like, all right, and then we blow it up at Tulsa the next day.
Perfect.
And it was like, and I remember that, because I'm like disgusted. It was like it was like 10 minutes left in the set. 10 minutes left.
Something like that. Yep.
And I oiled down the whole
freaking thing.
And I'm like, oh, whatever. And we're pushing the car over, and we go to it's like, I looked at David and said, do we want to go to the awards ceremony? It's like, we're here, let's do it, or whatever. And you keep looking at me with this friggin' shit-eating grin on your face, and I can't figure out why. Until they announced that we like finished third.
You backed your way into third place.
Backed my way into third place. Yeah. And broom and dustpan too. Yes, that's right. And do not use regular AN lines. Use PTFE AN lines.
Right, and that's what happened. The line that went to your map.
The map sensor reference
sensor.
Line, right. The map sensor
got a hole in it.
Line was regular AN hose, and it was an old one that I had that was non-E85 compatible, and the E85 fumes ate a bunch of holes in it. So it didn't seal, and the problem was we commanded 30 pounds of boost, and we actually got something like 48 pounds.
Hell yeah.
So
it was hauling balls till it wasn't.
It was on a pass until it wasn't.
Right. Right. But it didn't. It was not too bad because we only had about 10 minutes
Right. And
left, and we just ran out of one lane.
I was that guy that, nuked the whole lane because you see it all the time. That's a rookie type mistake. But I was so disgusted. I just
I
kept my foot buried in it. It's like, this thing is going to go. It's going to go.
Here we go. Yeah.
And because, we had fought it all week.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I know you told me too, you were like, I feel so bad. And I was like, dude, it happens. Like, no
Yeah.
big deal.
Yeah.
And we got everyone through and life was good and whatever.
Yeah.
But yes, you did nuke the shit out of that entire
Yeah.
lane.
There was typical LS.
But yeah, no, and that's that was a thing for sure.
Yeah. So I would have, like David was there to do that for me. And before that, Craig would ride along with me. And he's pretty decent mechanic in his own right,
Right.
and he could pitch in or whatever. So it was something I've done so many of these events now with Debbie. I can't remember the first one we did together.
I think it was one of the Lemons ones.
Well, no, Lemons was different.
Right.
But it was like, it was a drag and drive thing where, she was like, she wanted to, she asked if she could come along. And I said, well, sure. You're my wife.
Right.
We'll
let's do it.
let's do this thing. And that just started it. And it was like, I think no, wait a minute. Okay. I can remember exactly what it was now. I was thinking it was back in, our first one, 2021, when we did Midwest drags.
Okay. And that was when you did all four, right?
In the Hellcat. That was the year I did all 4 events.
Right. And that was the Margarita transport vehicle.
Right. I've done a lot of firsts that nobody knows about.
So yeah, but you had that one and you had Weapon X. So you did
Weapon, yeah, and that was the thing. Weapon X was supposed to go, but I'd gotten COVID.
Okay, right.
I got COVID, and so I was down for a couple of weeks, and then we're thrashing on it, and I'm getting ready. It's like, okay, we're getting ready to do this, and then I noticed that I had some chipped wheels in my turbos. It's like, oh shit, we got to take, the turbos are messed. We got to send the turbos back to Jose at Forced Inductions.
Of course.
Like, it was like, and it's like, damn, well, there's 2 weeks, and this is like with a week to go. It's like, okay, well, we're done here. It's like, so what do we do? We're signed up. Take the Hellcat.
Yeah, got to take the Hellcat, and yeah, you guys did do all 4.
And Midwest. And we did Midwest drags, and we did Rocky Mountain, the very first one.
And you did that you did both. You did the Rocky Mountain with the Hellcat.
That was the one that Tom Bailey was like giving me shit all week about the air conditioning deal.
Right.
He's like, you need to turn that off or whatever. I said, okay, no problem. And then that was where it was parked at the Angus. Remember when somebody in the middle of the night with their brodozer or whatever hit the front bumper cover and chewed all the thing off? So every time Tom Bailey would come by, he'd look at me and look at the car and just, like that. Yeah. It was really funny.
It ended up getting you one of the Wallettes.
Yep, it did. Yep.
And that was if you guys have your head under a rock, the Wallettes were the trophy guy bricked for Rocky Mountain Race Week. So Matt went out to the local Walmart and bought them out of Barbie's, and he spray painted them with chrome and gold spray paint.
Yeah, because it got delayed. He wanted to give everybody something.
You got to have something, so you got to have Wallettes. So you've got one, and Debbie's standing there, and she's so proud, and I got to give you guys a big old hug.
Yeah, and you're wearing my hoodie.
I'm wearing your Holly EFI hoodie because it's cold as hell.
Yep, I remember that.
But yeah, I mean, like ever since you've had Debbie along.
Yep.
On all these, and like Stevie says, if you need someone to braid your hair on race week,
that's right.
Debbie's your gal. Because Stevie typically has her hair braided by her mom when they race with her family, and I don't know how to do that. So I was like, who you ask is Debbie, and she was like, amazed because she has four, raised four boys with you.
Yes, yes.
So to all of a sudden have a
Right.
girl
Yeah.
to braid her hair, she was like, hell yeah, I'm in. And like I said, like we freaking love having you and Debbie out, and it's a really really cool thing. And then I mean, obviously, you guys got to go to Red Rocks this year, and
Oh yeah, that was fantastic. You know, we're
but
we're we're real big fans of Joe Bonamassa, and that's one of our things on our bucket list is to actually see him at Red Rocks.
at Red Rocks,
Yeah.
yep. And if you've
Now
never
that
been to Red Rocks, that's Red
away,
Rocks, and then
now that you're moving away from Morrison, it's like we got to figure on all going when it happens.
right, exactly. And then I mean, now I have you a spot by Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So I mean, you're welcome, or I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, just have to see if the Hotel Sheraton Johnson is still open.
Ah, it is.
Yeah, North by Northwest reference there.
It is. And then on this picture, it's also good to note that the people behind you are working out, which
Yeah.
is insane
Oh
that
my
people just
God.
work out up there.
It's really funny the difference in people in the Morrison area in particular than
Hmm.
anywhere else. I never saw so many people that were like bicycle riding, um, or walking or
Right.
jogging. I was watching these guys jog up these things at Red Rocks, and I'm looking at them like, what the hell here?
Yeah. Fun fact: if you run the entire like every row, it's a
Hmm.
5K. It's 3.2 miles.
Wow. Yeah.
So people will do that, and then obviously, if you've been there, you've seen it. People just work out there. It's a crazy thing. I've done it a couple of times in my youth.
Yeah.
Um, not not anymore.
And then I saw some crazy guy on a bicycle while we're going up Pikes Peak,
Right,
ri- riding a bicycle up Pikes Peak. It's like, well, you obviously live here because the air's too thin.
right,
Yeah.
right. Exactly.
you know.
I really quick want to I want to touch on Chip and hear and like his addition to your life.
Yeah.
And I know that's going to be a tough one for sure.
Yeah.
And then I want to go ahead and open it up to questions for everybody else. And I have my canned questions to ask, and then we'll call it a day. But but talk a little bit about Chip Rollins.
Okay. Well, I met Chip Rollins, back in 1980, obviously. And of course, he was kind of a second father to a lot of us guys, a lot of us street racers. He and Nancy, Nancy, his wife, she was our second mother as well. And he never really was. I mean, he had a very acerbic sense of humor.
Hmm.
That way. He would never say much, but then because we back then we all kind of would like try and cut each other down and do it like guy stuff,
Right, right,
that kind of, try and one up each other. Chip would always be really quiet, and then he would say something that would like setting off an atom bomb.
right. Floor the entire
Right,
place.
boom. It's like whatever.
Right.
So he was kind of from the old school. Work hard, work smart, and taught me a lot. He and Bob um, taught me a lot about a certain work ethic and about working, on cars in particular. A lot of younger guys would say, now it's kind of like boomer shit, and I get that, that there's a whole difference in
Totally.
generation, but it's something that Chip taught me. One thing in particular is, he had to raise two boys, John and Jason, and they didn't have a lot of money back then. So, and he was into performance stuff. So it was like he would never buy something; he would make it. He was kind of like he was Dennis Taylor before Dennis Taylor was a thing.
Totally.
Yeah, and that's I guess that's why I can relate to Dennis Taylor so well, because he reminds me a lot of Chip, and it's like he did a lot of stuff. Like for example, the uh, the thing that comes to mind when I think about it really quick. some of the things that you see today, like the crosshair nitrous system,
Mhm.
your plate thing. Well, Chip had a car back in the like 1982 that we called the Killer Cab, which was like a 70s 74 Caprice,
Okay.
had a 454. And back then, of course, you had your fixed plate nitrous systems. So he figured out that we'll take one plate, and we'll take the other plate, put it on top, and would stack nitrous plates. He would, I mean, doing stuff that people take for granted now.
Right.
We were doing shit, 40 years ago.
Right.
You
Right.
know, not to the success, obviously,
Right.
that
But you're trying it and figuring it out.
and he taught me to think and work very smart. And I had been estranged from my father for a number of years, and we finally reconciled before he passed. Whole a bunch of personal shit, but Chip kind of took that role over for me,
Mhm.
and you know taught me to do the right thing, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like you should. I mean, if it's not the most comfortable thing to do, you
The
should
the
still.
right thing even when it's the hard thing.
Exactly. And he to me was like, there's a saying that I found some years later that kind of summed it up. Uh, the thing that he taught me was, character is something that you do when no one is looking.
Mhm.
You know that
Yep.
kind of.
Yep.
And I'm like hardcore street racer type, young punk ass guy. You can't tell me anything. I know more than you. And he was incredibly patient with me and tried to guide me down the right path when I was fucking up as a kid.
Right. Like straight up.
Yeah,
Right.
straight up. And you know, it was something. The last time that I saw him, before he passed, we would go up to the Derek Putnam puts on an event called the 352 Shootout.
I announced it last year.
Yes, yes, and I think I missed it last year. I
You
was
you came and visited me in the tower with Craig.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. I was supposed to bring the El. I've been trying to bring the El Camino. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that, and that
But
here's a teaser. Bam.
yeah, so the last time I talked to Chip, he was sitting in the lanes, and he liked to. I mean, the bracket racing was his jam, and then he did a fair amount of super street racing too, and was pretty good at. Got himself a Wally or two, if I had
Cool. Cool.
balls. So I walked up to him, and he's taking a nap in the staging lanes, which is what he was known for. And I talked, and I said, and he got out of the car, and it was almost like maybe he knew that time was short,
Hmm.
almost in tears. And he looked at me and said, "I just want to let you know that I am so very proud of you."
That's so cool.
And I looked at that, and Debbie was standing next to me. And I was just like, she said, "You could have picked your jaw up off the ground."
I couldn't imagine.
It's just like, wow, where did that come from? You know, and so, I made it a point to try and spend as much time with him as I could, because he was looking pretty frail, and he never was the same after Nancy passed.
Hmm.
When we went to her service, again, he comes up to me tearfully, and he's saying, that, he goes, of all the guys, he said, you were like Nancy's special project. She wanted to make sure that you did, that you turned out as good as you did.
Right.
It's like, what do you say to something like that?
Right. Exactly.
You
Like,
know,
thank you.
you know, and
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
a tough. That. Yeah. Yeah.
and I mean, and another friend of ours, Dave Wolf, he just passed last week of cancer.
And you're going to
I'm going
his
to
service tomorrow.
this service tomorrow, and John and Jason, Chip's sons, are going to be there. And it's just, it kind of sucks. We're all getting older, but I mean, Dave, I mean, Jesus Christ, he's 5 years younger than me.
Right.
And his dad died young at 53, and Dave lasted a whole year past his dad.
Right. Right.
You know, I remember. You know, I don't want to get off on a morbid subject,
I understand. I get it.
but
But I mean,
it's just like, you know. So I mean, I would go up there, and I don't, you know, I don't spend a lot of time. I mean, we've blown through Gainesville a lot of times. We just go past or whatever, and I always want to stop in and say hi to Jason and John and Michael and all the guys there when I get the chance. You
right.
know, like the last time, you know, like with the Biscayne, it's like, you know, F this, we're getting home, you know, because it's like we've been on the road for 2 weeks and we're
Right, right. And we
you
just
know,
thrashed on this thing for the last 3
right.
days.
You know, and I mean, during the first sick week, we had the thing where we were chasing the wheelies, you
Yeah,
know,
it
and
was doing crazy
oh yeah,
wheelies.
I was doing crazy wheelies, and so we pulled into the shop, and Jason and Michael fixed the rack, you know, where I bent the rack mount.
Right.
You know, they fixed it for me and got that, so we managed to spend some time with them then. So, I mean, you know, bottom line is, you know, Chip was kind of like my dad.
Right.
You know, when my actual dad wasn't there, you know, he
Yep.
just kind of filled a role and taught me a lot. You know, taught me a lot of life lessons. I've tried to pass them on to my boys in my own way, and you know, with my one son in particular, we were like a couple of rams on a mountaintop. Sometimes we just sit there and, you know,
It
butt heads,
happens.
but it's because you know, we're so much alike. You know,
Right. Right.
and when he gets that certain way, um, I see myself back at that age when ain't nobody going to tell me
Right.
what's going on. I know what's going on, and it's like, you know, so
But in the process after Chip's passing,
yeah,
obviously
yeah,
he had the El Camino, but you've been entrusted with the El Camino,
yeah. The
and
El
here it
Camino,
is.
the El Camino was one of these things. It goes back. The last time the El Camino, um, Bob could actually probably tell me when it actually ran, made its last pass, because I started hanging out with these guys in 1980, and the El Camino was their shop truck.
Right.
Originally, you know, before it had the big tires and stuff on the back, like you see here, there was a parts place next door called Stego Auto Parts, and it was a machine shop,
Okay.
and it was you know, like a Napa parts truck. You know, they would deliver parts in the thing.
Totally.
They bought the thing. They bought it from them. You know, and it had a couple different small blocks and stuff. So they bracket raced it.
Right.
And so then Chip gets this idea, and it was like, I don't know, late 1979, early 1980, whatever. I'm going to put a big block in this thing. And then they never could get it to hook because it had stock suspension, you know,
Right. And crappy tires at the time, and
and stuff like that. So then they chopped, they radius the wheel wells, as you can see there, and he put some, you know, big tires and stuff on the back, and it worked okay. But then this was the era of where, you know, Grumpy Jenkins had started with the Vega back in the mid '70s. You know,
mhm,
the first stock that had wheel tubs and stuff. Back then, and I probably should post some of the pictures that I have of the El Camino, but the thinking was to, you know, narrow the rear end and put big tires underneath the car. So Chip gets it in his mind. Yeah, I'm gonna tub this thing out, you know, and do a pro stock style suspension and stuff. And remember, this is like 79, 80 we're talking. You
right.
couldn't call up S&W race cars or
Yeah, you're
cascade
building all
steering.
this shit.
So he hand built a 4-link suspension in the back, and took a 12-bolt rear end and narrowed it to where the tires sat this far inside the well. That's I already put I put a different rear end in there.
Got it.
That's actually a stock width 9-inch Ford, or actually stock width second gen 9-inch Ford, because it's got Pork Chop's old axles in it.
Okay. All right.
So what he did, and I would love to give you the pictures of it. You could probably search them out. I posted it, you know, back when I got the car
100 years ago, right?
years ago. Um, the wheels sat way inside. So the track width, the back tires are like this, and the front tires are like this.
Got it.
So it's like, this thing's going to be an evil handling bitch. I can tell you this right now. And there were some things, some 70s and early 80s logic, we'll call it, some stuff that was cut out of there. And it's like, I looked at this thing and went, I can see what he's doing, what he was trying to do. And if he
Right.
would probably put this car together and on the track, he probably would have crashed it.
Right.
But, you know, it was something that he was doing this in his 2-car garage at home.
Right.
And it was something sort of like what's going on with me with Pork Chop right now, where I work on it a little bit, and he's like, oh, I got this car here. Well, I'll work on it, and I'll race it for a while, and here's the El Camino. And 33 years later, the El Camino is sitting in his pole barn in Gainesville, and he's got to there, and they sold the house. They got to move. So there was a couple of friends of ours, and one guy in particular wanted the El Camino real bad and was going to buy it. And this was in 2014. Craig and I went up to visit, and we were talking. This is when Nancy was still alive.
Mm-hmm.
We went to visit the two of them, and we were talking about it. And Chip said, well, if you finish the car, if you put it together, I'll give it to you. I got somebody who wants to buy it. He said, but I'd rather you have it, you know, if you'll finish it. Of course. You know,
Okay, done.
You know, I'll do it. And we end up dragging the thing home and stuff. And I look at it, and then, of course, I realized just how much work it's going to be involved.
Right.
In.
Right.
So it sat for a couple of years. And in the meantime, Nancy had passed later that year. So I'm like, oh, shit, you know, I got to really get on this. And I wanted to finish it so Chip could see it finished.
Right.
And then he passed. And it's like, you know, of course, I feel this big, heavy thing of guilt, and I still carry some of it. But it's one that I understand, and I'm building this car with his philosophy in mind.
Totally.
Whereas, like, the back wheels that are on it, as you can see, I put some tires on it. But the back wheels he had bought from some modified racer back in the 70s.
Okay.
They're Anson Sprint 15 by 12, where they're actually very rare wheels. And so I bought the front wheels to match, and I paid a pretty penny for those on eBay. And it's like, well, you know, the car wasn't really a pro street car when they raced it and stuff. And I don't know if I want to do that because I already have a big tire car, the Chevelle. And it's like, why not build a gasser? It would be different. And, you know, how many El Camino gassers have you seen?
Right. Not very many.
You know, and it's like, so I, you know, and the front suspension was so hashed in it that we ended up cutting the front frame horns off, Steve and I. And we built our own frame rails, as you can see, out of straight box tubing.
Right.
And you know, I don't think, the motor's in it because you can see the headers. And,
right.
So it's like nobody made fender well headers for an A body, so we adapted Tri-5 headers. And it was one that I've got it probably about, I'd say it's about 80% finished.
Cool.
85% finished. And Chip had cut the dash. It had some real bad rust, and Chip had cut the dash out of it and put some hokey aluminum thing in. Well, that got the old heave-ho.
Of course.
It's not going to happen. So I found a steel dash at CTC Auto Ranch out in Texas.
Cool.
And, of course, it was eaten up with rust, and somebody else fixed it for me and was going to put it in. And then I realized when Steve and I put the cage in, that it wasn't going to work. So then I talked to Matt Donovan, my friend, and turned out that, you know, Bodywork's one of his things. So he actually flew down and put the dash in the car for me.
How cool is that?
You know, we were trying to get it ready for the 352 shootout. It's like, I still have to plumb it. I still have to wire it. You know, I got to do all this stuff. But it's got, in keeping with Chip's philosophy, it's got a lot of parts that I have grabbed from other cars.
Totally.
the axles and rear brakes from Pork Chop. Um, David had bought a set of Kill Duff lightning rod shifters
Okay.
for this project car of his that I also now own, which you have a picture of. It is a red Fairmont wagon, and that car, yes, that we originally called the Junkyard Dog. And he wanted to have he fell in love with these lightning rod shifters, so it's like, but then things happened, and I ended up acquiring that car from him. We seem to pass cars.
Right, because he's got Goldfinger.
Right. That was the car. That was his first car, and then he was going to chop it up, and that's why he bought the wagon. And so I ended up buying the Firebird from him, and then I put the LT1 in it, took it on Power Tour, did some other stuff. LS swapped it, and then gave it to him as a wedding gift for his first wedding, or for his first marriage. And then he had it, and then he took that on the Southern Classic,
Right.
and won that handily, I might add. So that car is still sitting in my shop. It's going to get work. It's going to get done one of these days. It's an ever evolving thing. Like
Right.
some of the cars, I'm going to do this. Well, no, I'm going to do this. No, I'm going to do this. No, I'm going to do this. That kind of thing.
I've never done that once.
Right. So he got this set of shifters, these lightning rods from Kilduff, and they're for a reverse pattern 400.
Oh, perfect.
And I don't know if you can see it. Pull that picture back up of the El Camino again. Toward the back quarter panel, you'll see like a white decal.
Uh-huh.
And that is a Lenco decal.
Okay.
The car originally had a Lenco mini spool. Lenco used to make mini spools.
Okay.
So the 12 bolt that was in it had a Lenco mini spool. So I thought, well, this shifter from Kilduff, they look like Lenco.
Looks like a Lenco.
So it's like, that'll go right with it.
Hell yeah.
So I built it all. I mean, that's all done. Really, I'd say if I spent probably 2 months of solid work, the El Camino would be done.
Hell yeah.
So
if you didn't have all of this other shit.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Rusty, that picture that you posted, that picture of Rusty there in front of the Bristol sign, that car was originally the parts car for Weapon X.
Okay.
Craig found, yeah. That was the very first Lemons rally we did. That was a lot of fun, and then that was the last one we did. This was on the way.
Okay.
Where we actually stopped at 3 Mile Island, and then we stopped in Centralia, the ghost town in the middle of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Which was cool, and that was one that we had never really placed very well at Lemons Rally, and we went into this last one. It's like the Retreat from Moscow Rally, where you start in Pennsylvania and you wind up at Barber Motorsports Park in Alabama.
Okay.
So. And we had never really placed, but I think the best we'd ever done was like 7th place at one of the events. So it's like, Debbie and I we do this for fun, because the Lemons guys, they're a riot.
Right.
They're fun to hang out with. And it was one of these things that it's like, we decided, okay, we'll try and hit as many checkpoints as we can, do all this kind of stuff. And about 2/3 of the way through, one of my son Dan, he's watching us, watching us on social media. And he's like, you guys are in the lead, right? And I said, no.
Say what?
What? What the hell's going on here? And we had missed there was a meet and greet from some YouTube influencer that Jeff Stobbs knew.
Okay.
And we missed it. And it's like, shit, we already went past it and stuff. So it was something. And again, David bailed me out here again. I call him and I said, hey, can you get a hold of Finn and get him to do like a little video for me, saying, wishing us luck or whatever.
Right.
Then again, like he's out in, where was he, out in Arizona with his family doing jet boat stuff. He drops what he's doing and does this video, because Finnegan and Freiberger had done Lemons Rally, and it was because of those two guys
that you started
that
into
we
it.
did it,
Right.
and it's like, so he does this thing, and, and I post it, and it's like the next to the last day, and we're supposed to be at the Lane Auto Museum in Nashville, and it's like, and Stobbs had been very specific. Said, be there on time because, they're keeping it open for us late and we're doing this exclusive tour or whatever. And, I message him and it's like, I don't know if I'm going to be there on time or whatever. We're trying. And my buddy Aaron McKay is riding with me. He's got a Ford truck and we are barrel assing down 24. We're doing like 80 miles an hour, like
right,
even in and out of traffic, trying to get there. And, we get in there with like, I don't know, 5 minutes to spare.
right.
We make it, and, I come up to Stobbs and I'm talking to him about it. And he just looks at me and he says, don't worry about it, man. You're good. Don't worry about it. And then, the awards thing comes up and they bring us, they do all the awards and we won it overall, thanks to Mike Finnegan.
Hell yeah.
We got all kinds of stupid. They have what they call stupidity points.
Okay.
You do all kinds, and you get points for doing like creative roadside repairs and stuff. And one of the, and we did a couple of other things too. There was like some crazy 1-lane bridge.
Okay.
In the middle of Bufu, West Virginia, that we had to go to. Well, I had, like the night before, you look at it and you route plan. And I looked and I noticed that there's this house that's right around the corner. It's the Buffalo Bill house from Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, that's where they filmed it. And you can see the bridge from this bridge tunnel. So it's like, we're there and Aaron's kind of following us at this point.
Got it.
And, so we pull out and we go through the tunnel and everything. And it's like, I make the turn and I do this stuff. And then I stop. I see the house. It's like, here it is. I told Debbie, here it is. And, stop. And he gets out of the truck and says, what's wrong? And I said, I'm pointing at the house. I said, extra point opportunity here. I said, look, and there's a sign on the yard that says what.
Right.
He's like, no shit, this is cool. We take and we got extra points for that.
Hell yeah.
When everybody else, they went to the tunnel, they took the picture and they turned around and went the other way.
Right.
It's like, that kind of stuff.
Totally.
So I mean, and as it turns out, we won it.
Which is cool.
Cool. I mean, so.
So you've won Lemons Rally.
One Lemons Rally.
You've got one of these jackets.
Yes.
As well.
Mm-hmm. One of those, but
you've got one of these.
Mm-hmm. I've got a hood.
You've got a hood. Yep. And you've got one of those.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, like, you got some clout in this world.
I don't know about that.
I mean, a little bit. If it's got wheels and stuff, I mean, you got some trophies from around.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's that whole jack of all trades, master of none thing.
It happens. And you've got the Drag Week 2016 Stranahan's.
Yeah. And you and I are going to open that at 2.0.
Yes, we are. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm in.
We were supposed to do it for Pikes Peak, but, things happened.
It happens.
Debbie and I weren't feeling that good, and the weather was
crap.
Was crap on the last day, and it was everything to do with getting the event done. And you guys didn't get it all the way done, did you?
We did not. No, we only finished Rowdy Radial.
Yeah. Okay.
The shootout, but what we ended up doing was raced everyone on the reaction time carts for the trophies, and then we split the prize money from everyone that was left.
That's cool. Yeah.
Drink. Yeah. I don't have any more alcohol. I'm out.
Yeah, I'm out too.
Oh well, we'll go into Q&A real quick. We've done 2 hours and 15 minutes, and it feels like it's just gone by. The only reason that really like kicked up is I was like, crap, I need to pee. So But that said, let's go
Well,
through a couple of questions.
if you got a, if you've got the, if you can take the time to, you know, take a break for a second and then get the thing queued up, I can go get another margarita.
Well, let's do that real quick. Let's take a quick 2-minute break.
Yep.
I'll pee you get a margarita. We'll be right back with Q&A. If you're on the if you're out here on the comments, post in some questions real quick. I do have one so far, and then I've got my canned one. So you knock it out, I'll knock it out. We'll be back in 1 minute.
All right, we'll be back.
I've never taken a break before. Intermission. Let's see how this works. I'm going to do this. Hey. Okay, I've never taken an intermission before.
Don't worry, you can hear everything in the background.
Perfect. All right. Hi, we're back. All right, here we go. How about an intermission, y'all? How about that? Talk amongst yourselves. I'll give you a topic. That's a good one, Ed. Real quick, while we're waiting for Robert to get back, next week I've got the Chill Trailer guys. How cool is that going to be? They asked if they should be in or out of costume. I don't know what they're going to do. I just said you guys figure it out. But yeah, dude, that's going to be super duper cool. Maybe mute next time. Yeah, whatever. A little bit of mutage. Never hurt anyone. You just got to hear me pee. It's all good. But I got the Chill Trailer guys, and they of course did the Candyman van as well on one of the race weeks, which was a very cool deal. So hopefully they do it in the trailer. That would be super duper neat. But I'm gonna have them on. I have talked to a bunch of other people, so I've got some cool stuff coming up, and we'll just see what kind of comes about with future That's Cool Drink episodes coming up. But again, post up your questions. It did. Yes, it did indeed. Phil just become a category of OnlyFans. It's very nice. We're having a fucking fantastic time here on That's Cool Drink. Once we get Robert back, I'm going to ask your question as well about the pork chop updates. We'll go through my quick 10 questions and we're going to call it a day. But again, I've got Chill Trailer guys coming. I do have Robert Williams coming back, and over 2 hours of riveting fun listening to Robert get all of his stuff on, and this has been a good time, y'all. This has been a really, really cool time. Thanks to the three of you that have stuck on with us for the entirety of this, and it has been a really, really good time for sure. If you do want to be on, like Ed Hohenberg, I'd love to have you on at some point. But if you want to be on That's Cool Drink, reach out and I will get you guys set up. And there's Robert with a brand new margarita. I was just telling the folks here that I have the guys from the Chill Trailer on next week.
Oh, those guys are awesome, man.
Super awesome. And the Candyman van, so the Nerds gummies and whatnot, and the Chill Trailer.
Yeah, we got some of the popsicles from them.
Yep. The
Yeah.
Otter Pops.
Oh yeah.
And thankfully, it wasn't a million degrees on race week
Hmm.
1.0 this year. It typically is a jillion degrees on that, and the chill
Oh,
trailer would
sure.
have made a lot of sense. It still made a ton of sense. It was
Yeah.
really, really cool. But their plan is like if there were people like broke down, they were going to
Mhm.
pull that thing by, and then you could chill in the chill trailer while you were fixing your crap on the side of the
That
road.
that's pretty cool. Yeah.
So that was sort of the plan with it along the way. But either way, so Phil Thomas, the man, the myth, the legend, the Philip Thomas,
Philip
the
Thomas.
pursuit of speed. Phil Thomas wants to know: have the pork chop updates been discussed yet? And this was another one from Mr. Skeletor himself, Don McGinnis. So what is going on? I know it was in chassis jail, and now it's not.
Hmm.
And where's it at? When's it going to make its triumphant return? What's the plan with pork?
Well, it was in chassis jail for quite a long time, and I'm not really at liberty to discuss anything more about it.
Okay, all right.
No,
So, but
we,
it
we actually, it is actually back on the project list
okay,
of things to do if the other cars would quit braking.
right. But it does have a complete chassis. It's got a cert.
It has never been certed,
Okay,
but it is a 25.3 car. Um, there are a couple of things. I mean, Dan Newman does killer work. The car is a work of art. But there are a couple of things that I want to change on the car.
okay,
Uh, Most notably the seat mounting, um, because there's some things. I mean, and for sure the trailer hitch thing, because I know that Dan's a very good chassis builder, and he's done some work on some really fast RVW cars.
okay,
Doesn't quite get the whole drag and drive thing. So it has what I would call um, a fragile trailer hitch
okay.
that probably break as soon as I
Hooked anything to it.
hook something to it.
Right.
So there's some things that need to be addressed on that. And then there's the issue of the engine and the power plant and stuff. And we're going back and forth on that. And I think I've settled on a combo for it finally.
Are you at
Um,
liberty to discuss the combo?
Turbo LS.
Okay,
Yeah, Turbo LS. Originally, it was going to be, and it's still kind of fluid. I haven't quite decided, but the smart thing to do, and originally that's where Weapon X came from. It was kind of like a test bed for pork chop.
okay,
Gonna learn how to drive. I was going to learn how to drive a turbo car because I've always came from naturally aspirated and nitrous was my background, and turbo cars have been a learning curve for me,
for
and
sure.
I finally figured out how to stage one, how to use a bump box, and all that kind of stuff. And
Well, and how to tune it, it's a whole different thing.
well, yeah, tuning it, that's still a thing, kind of a contention thing there. I'm Even though I do Holly EFI conversions, and I do them on street cars and stuff like that, I don't consider myself a tuner.
Right.
And I defer to David on that. He's tuned a lot of really fast cars. He's actually had a hand in Dave Schroeder's car, for
Mm-hmm.
example.
Mm-hmm.
So I trust him to keep me going fast and not blowing shit up.
Right.
And we've kind of both learned together on some things. And like I said, we figured out an issue on the Nova uh, with regard to boost versus commanded boost,
Okay.
and we found an issue with the cold side being too restrictive. So we've redesigned it, and hopefully Drag Weekend 2.0 will show the world that the true potential of Weapon X.
Hell yeah.
You know, and then that will translate directly to pork chop.
Perfect.
Because I mean, Pork chop. When I got it back from Dan, the way it's sitting right now, there's no. The doors are on it. The glass is in it. There's no windshield or back glass. And originally, of course, pork chop got its name from its rather portly condition, very heavy,
Right.
3,980-pound race weight. When I got it back from Dan, as a rolling chassis with no back glass or window in it, was 1,840 pounds.
Holy cow.
And that's with a steel front end on it.
Wow.
Steel doors.
Okay.
So the plans are for that. Probably, I'm going to put a glass front end on it, and probably cut it into little pieces because of the stink about a certain green Mustang at Sick Week when people were complaining about his one-piece front end, which
Right.
total bullshit. But that's a whole nother thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. As long as you cut it into a couple of pieces, then it's
Right.
not.
If you cut it into a bunch of pieces and then bolt it back together, it's still the same damn thing.
Right.
So there's no performance advantage to be had.
Right.
So that's a whole nother discussion.
But so it is going to make its return at some point.
At some point it is, because I look at it every day now, and of course, Steve. I wish Steve did social media so that he could take more of a part in what I'm doing and communicate. But we talk a lot. I mean, I've known Steve and I go back to our street racing days when we were teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking at the Nova and stuff, and he's like, this thing is a friggin' brick, and it's so heavy. I mean, you got to remember, Weapon X is almost as heavy as pork chop.
Right.
It's 3850. I mean, it's a heavy bit.
It's a big boy.
Yeah, and pork chop is not only lighter, but is more aerodynamic.
Right.
And has a real. I mean, when I commissioned Dan to do the chassis, I designed I had come up with it, and he made it happen, where it has dual rear suspension. It has either leaf springs or a 4-link.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So when I got it back from Dan, it was sitting on its leaf springs, and then that was when Weapon X was a ladder bar car,
mm-hmm.
and Craig and I discovered cracked ladder bar mounts. And so it's like, well, we don't have time to do this, but we can convert it back to leaf springs.
Springs, right?
So the leaf springs from pork chop are under Weapon X.
Okay.
And they are now Weapon X's leaf springs. Pork chop has a 4-link suspension.
Okay.
And so, and for obvious reasons, I spent a ton of money on pork chop. I mean, when Dan had the car for 3 years, we did some stuff, and he sent my shocks out to Mensker, and they revalved them for radial stuff. So now they have like 9 bazillion different friggin' settings, front and rear.
Right.
I mean, it's going to be. I look at cars like Tom's car and Jason Sachs and Dave's car and stuff like that, and I think I want to go that fast, but I don't want to work that hard.
Right.
So because there again, I mean, it's going to be me and Debbie. If Steve came with me, or somebody that could wrench with me, that'd be a different story.
Right.
So it's something that's why I was thinking the Turbo LS thing, because I mean the last iteration of Weapon X, it went a best of 824 at almost 170 miles an hour with still a soft launch.
Right.
I mean, the car is definitely 7-second capable once we get it set up. So imagine, if you will, taking that drivetrain from I know. Getting the air shifter would help as well. And I spin the motor, ask what's his name? Shit. I'm having a brain fart.
It happens.
Yeah, Chad. Ask Chad Reynolds when he commented that I bounce it off the rev limiter. so I twist that bitch. So imagine, if you will, taking a car that would say, let's say, just arbitrarily, Weapon X should run like 790s, I
Okay.
think, realistically, and stay together. Not turning it up on kill.
Yeah, not killing it to go
Yeah,
790.
No, it should run 790 something. So that car weighs 3,850 pounds. So pork chop, when it's done, should weigh 3,000 to 3,100 pounds.
Right.
What do you think it should run?
I mean,
Obvious. But there again, it's a non-linear thing.
right. But I mean, it should 750s or not.
50, 740s.
Right. Not out of the question.
Effortlessly.
Right.
And drag and drive, as you know, is a marathon and not a sprint. You see it a lot with the newbies that come in first day, second day. They're swinging for the fences, and damn it, I am going to win this thing, and I'm going to go faster than anybody. Oh shit, I broke.
Right. Right.
Happens all the time. Happened to me in my first year.
Hell yeah. I've done that.
So
all right. 2.5 hours. I think we're in good shape. I need to just run through these 10 questions. If you guys want to do any more questions, leave them here in the comments, and let's get this wrapped up, man. I mean, 11:30 your time. So
I'm good. I'm not working tomorrow.
Well, I am. So what's the largest thrash that you've been a part of?
Largest thrash I've been a part of. That's well, I would have to honestly say would be 2.0, the first year.
Yep, with David and
David,
all the heads,
and the cylinder heads, and just trying to. I mean, on the very first pass.
Right.
You know
right.
what I mean?
Yep.
On the first
and
pass.
So you were thrashing the whole week,
whole week.
Yep.
Yep.
Hell yeah. What's your best memory from any drag and drive?
Oh, God, there's so many. There are so many. Best memory. I mean, winning's cool. I've wanted it. I've won a couple of these. Probably my favorite is lining up with David.
Hell yeah.
At Norwalk, and that was totally unplanned. That was the coolest thing. He rolls out and I roll out, and it's like, wow.
Hey, sure enough, there's me and my kid both in our black cars.
Yep.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Drink. Stevie brought me a new water, so water. Tell me about the one that got away. What car did you sell that you shouldn't have?
That I sold?
Yep.
That I shouldn't have? It's not one that I sold per se. And I've told this story to other people. It's when I worked, it was one of my first jobs. And it was a car that I went and got when I was driving a tow truck.
Mm-hmm.
Got a rotation call. There's a bridge between Cape Coral and Fort Myers. The Cape Coral Bridge. It was that one, and then the Caloosahatchee Bridge up north. That was before the Midpoint Bridge. But I got a call to get a car that was at the top of the bridge. It was blocking traffic.
Okay.
I get up there, and I get up there with a tow truck, and there's this black 73 Grand Am.
Oh, sweet.
Sitting at the top. And I remember this is like 1985.
Okay.
1985. So, and what happened was it was missing the left front wheel. And what happened was the wheel bearings were bad, snapped the spindle. The wheel went bouncing off and landed in the Caloosahatchee River, and the car's sitting there. So it's like, I pick the car up, I tow it back to the shop. We call the customer, it's like, okay, you need a spindle, and you need, you need a spindle, you need a brake rotor, caliper, wheel, stuff like that. Guy didn't want to fix it. Of course, back then we're talking, it's like 1985. Today, anything like that, it's like, oh, it's a fucking classic, you gotta see.
Right.
Like,
right.
Back then it was an old used car, and This car was triple black. It was, black car,
Black on black when black.
black
Yep.
roof, black interior, swivel buckets. It was a 400 turbo 400. Kind of it was a
Pretty. I mean,
it was
for
a
a 73 Grand Am, as cool as it could be.
and it had, if I remember right, it had like 60,000 miles on it. So back then, 100,000 miles car was junk.
Junk, right?
So, the guy didn't want to fix it. I hauled it to the junkyard. The guy brought the title, and we sold it to the junkyard for $50.
Oh no!
Yep. And that was one that, of course, back then I was blinded by second gen. I was blinded by second gen Firebirds, Trans Am. That was the only car for me.
Right.
But something in the back of my mind said, maybe you should buy this car.
For $50.
Buy it for $50. And it's like, but then I got to spend all, I'm going to spend like, a couple $100 to fix it.
Right. Geez, it needs a rotor and a spindle.
This kind of stuff. And remember, this is 1985. Not making a whole lot of money. Everything's relative.
Right. Right.
It would be a significant amount of money. And that one always stuck in the back of my mind. It's like, I should have saved it, And I, again, here recently, 2 years ago, as a matter of fact, there was an eBay auction. And it was an estate sale. It was a 73 Grand Am.
Damn.
455 car. It was blue. Could have bought it for $9 grand. And it's like, and I was this close to buying it. And
Right.
I didn't. And now, what are they going for?
Oh, there's so much.
Oh, they're fucking crazy. Any colonnade. I'm still searching for the perfect colonnade car to add to my fleet. 73 Grand Am is one of them.
Right.
73 Chevelle SS 454 or any Laguna.
Totally.
Those. But one of these things, I don't want a project car. I want one.
It's got to be done.
It's got to be done and drive. I would love to piss off a purist and just LS swap it. Sure.
Right.
But it's something that's got to run and drive. And it's, I may wind up with one. I may not. You never know.
Yep.
Second gen F body still the move. Yeah, I've got 3 of them. So yeah, and a third gen too.
So money's no object. What drag and drive race car are you gonna walk up to and buy?
Let's see. Drag and drive. No money.
One car you can just walk, and they're gonna sell it to you.
Okay, they're gonna sell it to me. I would have to fit in it. Otherwise, it would be Dave Schroeder's '66 Corvette. I would love that, but I can't fit in it because Dave's like half my size.
Right.
If he could make Johnny fit in it, then I suppose I could do. But probably with that one, for the pure cool factor, either Doug Klein's '69 Camaro.
Hell yeah.
Or Mike Roy's Monte Carlo.
The Monte is...
Monte Carlo is like, that's badass.
That thing is the jam.
That's a big car. That's the thing.
And it, moves and moves and moves.
For sure.
Nice. I like it. Mine was mine would be Larson's Nova, or Joe Barry's car, but he has to put the Lenko in it.
Yep. Tri-5s are cool. I had a 55 like a bazillion years ago, but it's just,
yeah,
not my jam.
But either one with a Lenko for me is, I'm in.
So
let's do it.
Yeah, one of course would be a certain black second gen Camaro.
Hell yes.
But that story has yet to be written.
Hell yes. I can't wait to hear that story.
Well, you never know.
What's the favorite racetrack you've been to?
Favorite racetrack? Several. I have a very soft spot in my heart for SRCA.
Totally.
I love that track. The history behind it, more than anything.
The first U.S. Nationals in
Yeah, very
1955.
the first U.S. Nationals. I was struck by that the very first time I went there. You know, you could feel the history.
Right.
Virginia Motorsports Park, because that's where I won my Wally.
Okay.
What else? Because I have several. Obviously, I have several favorites. And what would be the other? Bandamere.
Gotta love Bandamere.
Love the mountain, man. Gonna
Yep.
miss it.
And you get to bring Weapon X
I get to
back.
win second time, yeah.
Yep, back to Bandamere.
Brought 3 cars to Bandamere.
Nice. Yeah, that's
I
true.
brought the Challenger, I brought Weapon X, and I brought the Biscayne.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And yeah, they're gonna close like less than a month after we're there.
Yeah.
We're gonna be some of the last people down that racetrack. Which
I hope that the new facility, if they build it, will live up to the original.
How do you recreate it? I mean,
Well, you know, I mean, when you think about that, it's like there's all the memories, but you make new memories with new stuff.
exactly. I think if you try to put them next to each other, it's going to be a tough thing. I
Right.
just hope they build a successful racetrack.
Yep.
I mean, whatever it is, you know,
tough road to hoe. Let's be honest.
right,
You know,
right. And I mean,
this climate, you know, with
right. Given recent stuff and everything,
do it. I think the Bandamere family can.
100%, 100%. Trailer or no trailer?
Because
Because you've done it both ways. You had the Biscayne without anything.
I like not having a trailer when you're driving, but I love having a trailer when I'm at the track.
Right.
So
and you've got kind of a cool trailer too.
that trailer has gone under has several different revisions, and probably when Pork Chop comes back, there will be a new trailer built.
Okay.
You know, just because I look at everybody's trailer when I'm at Dragon Drives, and I would love to have Dennis Taylor build me a trailer.
Dude, his trailer is baller.
His trailer is sick. You know, that's true. That is so true. It's almost as big as that damn thing too. Yeah, I mean, you know, looking at things, you know, looking at logical stuff, and it's like, I hate digging through the trailer to try and find something. If I need something immediately, I want to be able to go in there and get it.
You know where it's at.
Grab it, do the job, and, you know.
And put it back, and then know if it's not there.
Oh, yeah. Well, interesting. Yeah. The trailer is no longer mine.
Okay.
It's Debbie's. And she's like, you know, you don't mess around in my trailer.
Right.
You need something, I'll get it.
That's awesome.
Her organization system, you know, it's like,
right.
She knows where everything is.
Hell yeah. Like, and you're like, I need this thing, and you won't even say what it is, right? But she's bringing it to you.
Yeah, it's like, I need this or whatever. So I turn into Dom DeLuise in Cannonball Run. I'm just the driver.
Right. Well, you're like,
yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I've got one left, and people on the stream, throw up anything else you've got, but we're going strong. 2 hours and 45 minutes. This is my longest one by a lot. And
this is another first.
That's right. Your first one doing one of these. My first one going this far. So drink indeed. So my last question, and we'll bring it back to the folks, and if we got nothing else, then we'll wrap it up.
Mm-hmm.
But what is your number one piece of advice that you would give to a newbie?
Don't do it.
You idiot.
No, God, that's a loaded question.
Thanks. It really is. It's because there's so much, but like one thing that you've learned along your route that you like wish you'd have known right at first.
If you think you know everything that you need to know, you don't. Don't be afraid to ask questions. to the veterans and pay attention to the way cars that are successful are built. Overbuild in some cases. Can never have too much cooling system. Can never have too much charging system. Never have too much fuel system. You know, basic common sense stuff.
That you would think is common sense, but
You would think, yeah, but some guys just don't, you know.
well, and when it comes down to it, it's they may not even know. Like,
Right.
this thing's and like what I tell a lot of guys when this comes around is what you think is a long drive is not a long drive.
Oh yeah.
Like you need to drive your stuff for hours.
Dude, I get this from guys that come in the shop. Oh, I gotta drive to Bradenton. It's 90 miles. That's cute.
Right. Right. No, I mean 90 miles, we're almost there, dude.
Miles, dude. You know, it's like that's
But
around
that's my big thing is, I'm like, dude, if you can drive your car for an hour, that's awesome. You're 1/7 of the way there.
Yep.
Drive your car for 7 hours. And I mean, like, that ain't no shit.
Yep.
You need to figure out being able to get your stuff from here to here without killing it. And you may do that in, 120 mile chunks, but
Right.
it's got to do that. Like with you not opening the hood, with you not doing anything else, like make sure you can go 7 hours. And then, you've got a pretty good idea what's going on. But, a lot of guys are like, well, yeah, I drove it 90 miles. I drove it an hour and a half and then parked it for 2 hours.
Right.
And then drove it home for another hour and a half. Well, cool. You're halfway there.
Yeah, exactly.
So, now double it. And you still have to do that in one day. And you're not also going to be sitting there for 2 hours while you're chilling.
The number one thing I would tell anybody is your goal should be to finish, not to win. If you win or if you podium, that's a bonus. You can't win if you don't finish.
Right. Right.
And finishing some of these events, Rocky Mountain in particular, is an accomplishment.
Right. And a lot of them, and we kind of talked about this a little bit ago, like a lot of them have kind of gotten distilled down to some smaller distances because it just is it is what it is. It's kind of the en vogue thing now.
Right.
And when you get a Rocky Mountain day and you have 400 miles on your route sheet, and then you think in your head like, okay, I'm going to go 75 miles an hour, 400 miles. It's 5 hours, no big deal. And then you pull into your hotel 13 hours later. That's real life. I mean,
our last drive day from Pueblo to Kearney.
Right. And dealing with altitude sickness.
Extra 150 miles. We got into the hotel. We left the hotel at we left the hotel at 8:15 in Pueblo. We got into Kearney at 1:45.
Right. Right. And you added 150 miles and
done.
Right.
We were done.
But that's everything. That's everything you have.
Yep.
So yeah, that's always my big thing is you can never drive your stuff too much.
Nope.
There's no such thing as too much practice because there'll be a day that you do 14 hours and maybe your car will do that, but you might not be able to.
And you want to test your stuff in the worst conditions possible. If it's hot out, drive that bitch. Because if it's going to overheat, it's going to overheat then.
Right. Right.
Or if it's going to rain, like rain, you want to make sure that, the car can handle wet weather because you're going to be in all kinds of weather during these deals.
Right. Right. But that said, that's it. That's it for me. I got nothing else on the comments.
Okay.
David says, actually, David says that he's got 90 miles to find a bathroom. And then they want you to come run the Southern Classic.
I'm not a Transcon wide open type guy. My son is, and he's no longer welcome at the Southern Classic because the organizer is a pussy.
Ooh, snap!
Yes. So
snap. You heard it here first.
That's right. I have no filter, and I have no problem saying what's on my mind.
That's right. That's
So
right.
I
But
won't mention
dude,
his name, but the people know who I'm talking about.
they know what's up. They know what's up.
That's right.
But hey, dude, we almost did 3 hours
Yeah.
hanging up, and we still have a ton more stuff that we could cover, but
Oh yeah.
I'm done, man. It's I got to
I,
work tomorrow.
my tablet is at started at 100%, and I am at 9% battery.
Nice. Nice. So we're going to finish just in
Almost
time
killed.
for everything cuz I'm at 9% as well. So, but dude, this was so much fun, and it was super fun kind of getting a little bit of your background and seeing kind of what brought you into where you are now, and
Get the exclusive.
I got the exclusive. I've got the one. It's the one background of the
Right.
Robert Williams.
But I'm that special, but I don't talk to just anybody.
Special enough. I mean, we got further than anybody else. I had a couple of these that were 45 minutes, which were still really cool. But this has been fun, and we've had kind of the same dozen people or so
Yeah.
partying with us here tonight, and that's been a good time too. So thanks to everyone for tuning in.
Yeah.
Robert, I'm going to throw you kind of in the background here real quick.
Okay.
But again, dude, thank you for the exclusive. Thank you for so
Welcome.
much
You're welcome.
fun kind of hanging out here and getting through
Looking
it.
forward to drinking with you at 2.0, dude.
Can't wait. We got to open up that
Yeah.
Diamond Peak.
Got to make the time this time.
That we have to. We have
Yep.
to.
Yep.
And once the schedule comes out, what I want to do is once the schedule comes out, make sure that all of our hotels line up.
Yeah, let me know.
Because then we'll be in every spot
Right.
each time. So it just increases our chances of making that happen.
Vandermeer is our anchor. Yes.
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I don't know yet. I know that's the plan.
I'm hoping that's it, because that would be so cool.
So I think that's really what they're pushing for. It's a tough deal because Pueblo's throwing out the Wallies.
I know.
So and we we do really dig on Pueblo too. So
still gonna be 3 tracks though, right?
What I would guess is we're gonna do. I'm thinking we're gonna do 2 days at Pueblo, 2 days at Bandamere, and we're gonna add Kearney. I don't know.
There's no place to stay there, so
Right. So I don't know what the process is with any of that, and it's not been nailed down just yet, but I know that's where it's going.
Okay.
So hopefully we have it, and then that's the case, and that's going to be easy for me because then I stay.
Yeah.
I would say I stay home, but I don't. I'm moving before then, but I hopefully I'll have a place to stay here close. The guy that's renting my house is a buddy of mine, so he'll let me stay on the couch maybe.
Sweet.
But that said, Robert, dude, again, thank you.
Philly at Red Rocks, right?
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
All right.
Bonamassa at Red Rocks. That's cool. Drink.
Yeah, we get some green chili at Red Rocks before during 2.0.
Absolutely, we'll get green chili. And I water go down the wrong tube.
All right.
Perfect timing. But I'm going to throw you in the background real quick. I'm going to do a quick sign off, and then I'll bring you back on, and and we'll say our goodbyes.
Okay.
So 1 quick second, but guys, holy crap! Episode 18, almost 3 hours long with Robert Williams, and we totally could have gone for another hour at least. We've got so much more stuff to cover, and it's what's cool with doing these with dudes I've become friends with is we just have so much background and so much stuff to kind of cover and fit through and get through, and everyone kind of throwing up their questions and had David pretty much the whole time, and Ed Hohenberg's back. I'm going to have you on, Ed, for sure. And David, I'm going to have you on at some point for sure as well. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, for checking this out. Episode 18. We've had so much fun here. And like I said, I've got the Chill Trailer guys on next week, and just a lot kind of coming up here. And it's going to be very, very cool. Still sticking to Thursdays, still sticking to 7 p.m., at least at the moment. And really at this point, my only kind of breaks are going to be I've got to move. So I might not do one on Labor Day weekend because I've got to move, and then race week. But I should have someone kind of in the next few times, and Ed gave me a thumbs up as well. So that'll be cool to have Ed on. I'm always really excited to have some of my fans on the show, and I had that with like Alan Murray earlier. So very cool. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for sticking with us for 3 hours with Robert Williams, and That's Cool Drink. Again, episode 18 coming to an end. Episode 19 with the Chill Trailer guys. Episode 20, we're going to have a blast, and we're just going to keep on rolling from here, guys. But again, thank you again to Robert Williams for joining me. Thank you again for everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe this stuff. And I know that's kind of cringy and weird, and that throw that stuff out every time, but it really does help. I'm almost at 500 subscribers, which isn't a ton. I mean, whatever, I'll take what I can get. But really, the goal is if I can build this thing into something cool where it starts reaching kind of the masses, and they'll really understand how cool this is, because this is like the biggest like sleeper podcast that's out there, because I've had so many cool people on it. But guys, it's been super awesome. Thanks again for sticking in here with me. Episode 18 is coming to a close, and again, I'm Adam Dory, and we are done.